Now the end is near, so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll see it clear. I'll state my case.
Well, you know, Charles, there's just two ways, and one of them is the highway. How are you, Charles?
Great to see you, Jason.
Great to see you too. It's not Sunday until it's Sunday with Charles, and actually today we are bringing back a very special guest. Let me kill the music there. And of course we have with us today from Sweden. Great to see you too. Oh, there's so many things going on here. See, I try to get creative with the music, and one of the issues that's happening is that we've added some new platforms. You know, there was the YouTube purge. Hello, Bilyana, how are you?
Hello.
Lovely to see you. You know, there's been a YouTube purge here in the United States, Bilyana, and what we've done to fight the scourge of communist censorship is to expand our platform. So we're now streaming live on gab.ai, and of course we've got the Russian VK.com social media network. Actually, Charles, we've been reestablished on YouTube. I submitted a formal counterclaim against the law firm for the Spanish Riding School of Vienna that accused us of copyright infringement for just showing the website of the Spanish Riding School, which of course has been accused of animal abuse. So I was surprised that they didn't challenge the facts, but rather just put in this underhanded strike. We've had that lifted and we're back to live streaming, so that's good.
That's good, so no strikes.
Well, what's happening now is they have 10 to 14 days to respond, but they must take legal action according to YouTube. So now they've got to go to court and prove that it was a copyright infringement. Certainly under US law, it's fair use of their logo to report allegations from a credible equestrian expert showing photographs and expert testimony from veterinarians. So I don't think they're going anywhere with that, but I digress. We have so much to talk about today.
Well, I think once again, we can start by congratulating the art department. I mean, this is a fantastic poster, don't you think, Bilyana?
We're all featured in there, so we're saving Sweden, Charles. That's the idea. And with Bilyana's help today, that can be our goal. How have things been in Sweden since we last spoke to you, Bilyana?
Very icy everywhere. Lots of ice. Cold. It has been extremely, for Gothenburg area where I live, kind of southern Sweden, has been very cold.
And are you talking about the weather or the political climate?
We are talking about the weather. The weather is icy. About the political situation, I would say the political situation is getting hot. So politically things are getting tougher. You know, people are getting tougher. I think my view was I watched the conversations and the tone and all that. Right. And that is completely natural and very understandable since we have an election very soon.
When is that?
The 9th of September.
That is very soon.
Yeah.
And it's what, one left-leaning party against an even more left-leaning party?
Exactly. This is the situation.
Yeah.
It's I read an article today in very well written article, but it was not informing you correctly of what's going on because it said that there is a far right party which is against the migration, and there is no such thing. There is no far right party in Sweden. The only party that it has been for years and years intensely against mass migration from the so-called MENA mass migration from Middle East and South Africa. If you read their program, which I did, I read all the party's programs to see what's going on. If you read it, you'll find out that it's a left-wing party, which has one specific thing about them, and that is that they want a very controlled migration, mass migration. So they don't want mass migration, and if there is migration, they would like to have it controlled. And that's basically it. The rest of the path is, except now suddenly we hear the Moderaterna, that's the, we could translate it as the Conservative Party, but it's not a Conservative Party. It is a left-wing party that has a little bit more of a conservative tone than the others. And that party started to talk about the migration and that we cannot afford to manage this amount of migration that Sweden has, and nor the consequences and issues that we have related to it. So they're not just challenges. I think the discourse has been: is this a challenge, or is this a huge problem? That's the level of the conversation, I think. And some people are arguing that this is a huge problem. There are huge problems such as rapes and gang rapes, violence, lots of costs, enormous costs, priorities for the incoming new population with respect to the living here population. And then others think that no, these are not big challenges, there's not big problems, we are taking care of them. And of course there are challenges when you have such big migration, but we will manage it, and it's very good for us because we are earning money on it. The society is earning on it, and that's the other side of the coin. Yeah.
You know, I don't know if this is too negative of an outlook, but Ken Solch in the YouTube comments is telling me that it's sad to say, but it's too late for Sweden. I hope that's not the case.
It's never too late.
Never too late.
Never too late. But what we want to do, Bilyana, if it's okay, we want to go through a bunch of slides just to update the audience in the way we normally do each week about the Clinton Foundation, and then we want to close the presentation out with a detailed report. I know you have quite a few slides that are very interesting. So if you let me, I'll just quickly take us through these first few slides, and then we'll segue into your more detailed report. Is that okay?
Yes, I have only one comment here. This new setup that we have, that I can look at the slides.
Yes.
And the problem is I don't really see the show, so I have to look at another screen. I don't know, maybe we can work it out. I'm constantly looking at the screen.
I apologize. I'm always trying to make it a little bit better, but for right now, that's the only way we can do it.
Okay,
but
okay. So
let's get into Charles's slides there,
sure.
Shall we?
So what we're talking about here, and this is we've been talking for many weeks now, country after country. There is a battle going on around the world between the well-connected billionaire globalist class that would love to see a system where no national laws can touch the globalists because they flit from country to country. And they'd like to see strong countries, once strong countries like Sweden, which used to be a major league factor in international exporting businesses around the world. They want to see countries like Sweden crushed. And they even wanted to see this country, the United States of America, crushed. You could go back and you could look at the last 8 years under Obama, and even actually under George W. Bush, perhaps especially under George W. Bush, then going back to President Clinton and H.W. before him, the last American president that really meant what he said when he said he wanted to make America great again before Donald Trump was Ronald Reagan. And so what we see in Sweden, and it's a real shame, we've talked, and thank you for joining us again, Bilyana. I think the last time we were together was Christmas Eve.
Oh, yeah.
And we spoiled your Christmas Eve. Sorry about that. I hope there's not a big holiday coming up tonight, but the last time we talked, Donald Trump really hadn't gotten stuck in quite as much. He hadn't had as many successes. He was still trying to get his tax cut thing across the line. He was being fought tooth and nail. And now in this country, after well over a year of fighting hard, Donald Trump's beginning to make some headway. And the economic growth in the United States is really beginning to take off. We're having our challenges in the markets, but as the largest economy in the world starts growing faster and faster, that's going to help Sweden. And I think, and I hope, that the example being set here and maybe being emulated in other countries around the world will animate people inside Sweden to say, hang on, this globalism, and excuse my language, this globalist crap that is being, thrown at us perpetually inside Sweden, it's not working for the Swedish worker, it's not working for the Swedish citizen, it may be working for the very well-connected elites inside Sweden who would love to get big jobs working in the UN or in multinational companies or foundations around the world. Maybe it's helpful for them, but for the ordinary person in Sweden, it hasn't been helpful, and there's an alternative path that will prove to be helpful. So what we're going to talk today about, at first, we're going to bring people up to date with new information we found out about how these globalists use the Clinton Foundation as sort of a way to trade cash for political influence in Sweden and in these international organizations. And we're going to take people quickly through an update of some salient facts, because a lot of cash has come out of Sweden to the Clintons, to various supposed charities that in fact are not charities.
It's essentially a bouillabaisse of corruption.
Exactly. Or what would be the Swedish dish? I don't know. What's the Swedish soup? I guess we'll move along.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
I hear you. What did you say?
I said soup. What, is there a Swedish soup that's kind of like bouillabaisse? A mixture of...
a very fat, you mean very fat fish soup?
Yeah, something like that. We'll just call it... Well, actually, there's something worse than that. I've never eaten this, and please don't try to convince me to try it. When I was in Sweden once at a restaurant, the first times I was there, all of a sudden, this smell came out of the restaurant. I seriously thought that there was a problem, with the plumbing or something in the restaurant. And I think, if memory serves, it's something called lutefisk or something like that, where you take a fish and you bury the fish, and if whatever happens when you bury a dead fish happens to the fish, and then you take it up and you eat it.
Wow.
And these Swedes are trying to say, "Oh yeah, it's really good."
This sounds like the...
I have only heard about this. Mainly heard horrible stories about the smell of that fish.
That is the culinary equivalent of the Clinton Foundation.
Exactly. There we go.
You bury it, and then it comes out and smells really bad.
Yeah.
Fetid, fermented.
That is actually. That's the Lutefisk Foundation.
Yes, there you go, Charles.
So if we go to the next slide.
Yes. Where am I here?
I don't know.
There we go.
So each presentation, Bilyana, we remind everybody, our audience, which now is more not just a U.S. audience, thanks to the viewers from around the world who are watching this. Some may not be aware of the special protections that exist inside the United States of America concerning freedom of speech. That doesn't operate in certain places, but we're doing this from the United States, so we're going to keep doing it the way we want to do it.
Sometimes it operates in the United States.
That's right.
If you're not Jerome Corsi or a few of the select people.
Yeah. So what we do each time, our presentations are based off of publicly available information, and where possible, we try to provide links to that information so that in people's spare time, they can double check what we've done, and they can read up on the links. If they see something that, they reach a slightly different conclusion, we encourage constructive comments. And you can do that through my website very easily, and Jason has a contact point as well. I don't know, Bilyana, whether you do, but we put some of our contact points down here, and Jason has been creating this amazing playlist, which maybe we should probably pull up, of all the many videos we've done. I guess it's now 52 videos, and I haven't yet done an update of how many views we get just on YouTube, but we're well over 500,000 views on YouTube.
Wow.
Way over that.
Wow.
And we're trying to keep the momentum up and step the momentum up. We're going into a period where there's a lot finally happening, hence the music. And
well, actually, you remind me, Charles, I want to give credit to the YouTuber and the musician who we got that track from. It's this guy here, Brad Dyson.
He's got the hat.
He's got the hat, so that was nice to be.
You will never see me wear one of those hats. That I can tell you.
But
never.
we did do it your way, Charles.
But I like the music. Well done, Brad.
Yeah.
So if we go to the next page of the presentation.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to quickly, there are a lot of links here, and on this presentation we're mindful that Bilyana has a very in-depth presentation that we want to give that justice to. So we're not going to pull up all these links. I'm going to pass through them very quickly. But just to say in the first point that Donald Trump attended this gridiron dinner, which is it's where the press mingle with lawmakers and politicians and the president.
Nothing to do with football?
I think it has something to do with this for a charity. I'm not exactly sure why, but it's customary for the President of the United States to go to this thing and be roasted, and then he gets up and delivers a funny speech in response to it. And people were really assuming, as usual over here in the United States of America, that he would not do a good job and he would fall flat, and instead he crushed it. And we provide a link here. He was very, very funny and exceeded expectations. But, you know, what do you expect from a man who's been a global celebrity most of his adult life? I mean, right? He's very comfortable doing this kind of stuff. He was a television star, so I expected him to do well, and he did.
And he is pretty funny, I have to admit, all of his nicknames for people and stuff. I mean, he's got a biting sense of humor, but he is pretty funny.
He reminds me, so as a kid, I'm dating myself, but as a kid, I used to watch The Honeymooners, which is Jackie Gleason. And I don't know, Bilyana, if you've ever seen The Honeymooners, but it's a very funny show set in, I think, the 40s, even earlier, perhaps. You there?
Well, not the 50s. They had TV.
50s, maybe, yeah. And it was, no, or I think even earlier. But anyway, he reminds me a bit of Jackie Gleason at the time. What happened last week that was very significant, in fact, it was interesting. I got an early email from Russia, from this very important Russian channel, I've been on it a few times, asking would I be prepared to comment on the equivalent of Russia's 60 Minutes about Vladimir Putin's announcement that he had this new generation of weapons.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So I was very pleased to do that, and that went up on Saturday night in Russia. I haven't seen the clip yet, but it was very interesting to me that they asked me to do it, and so I got a chance to look at this. The animation that Vladimir Putin put up on the screen was just that. It was an animation. So it's unclear whether these weapons actually work. It's unclear how far advanced they are. It is certainly unclear what the United States may already have in this area and what other nations may already have in this area. But on balance, it was a very aggressive move, pitched, I think, to the internal Russian audience more than anything.
Charles, this is
election.
Crappy animation.
And you speak as an expert on what's good and what's bad.
That is really poor. I'm kind of surprised. So what's the deal? Is it hypersonic? What's the story with this missile?
Well, the path was supposedly unusual. You saw that thing there, and then it ends up coming back and I think hitting the west coast of the United States in theory. So it was certainly an aggressive move. And
from an animation standpoint,
not so much. Yeah.
Shrek is very concerned about this missile.
Right. But if we go back into the text, what was even more interesting is the story that came shortly thereafter, that the technology, the hypersonic missile technology that may be used, could have been technology that might have been transferred under Hillary Clinton's watch via Skolkovo. And this would be an area that maybe Jan Weinberg, our colleague, who is all over this, how the Clintons and unfortunately Team Obama, how they were willing to stoke the defense establishment by raising the threat levels around the world. So that's a really shocking thing. I did a story, and this is, I get to shamelessly promote a few things from time to time. I try not to do much of it, but I did do this story here for Life Set last week that I was very pleased to see has gotten picked up by multiple other platforms, including some newspaper in Tennessee for some reason. They basically take my story and then put it in different platforms. But what I was saying here, and it's something we're going to step the game up a bit, is that for all the talk about what the Clintons were doing and Hillary Clinton and this and that, not enough attention has been focused upon the Obama administration and their aggressive moves during the 8 years that he was in power against the press, spying on the press, spying on James Rosen, spying on, some say, John Roberts, Congress, the Senate. Cheryl Atkinson. You know, this is just, the tools of technology are too powerful to allow a government which is prepared to spend as much money as our government, all in, federal, state, local, spends $6 trillion a year. We shouldn't be letting the United States of America become the United Surveillance States of America and allow people who like to meddle in the intersection of politics and business to start spying inside the United States and even outside the United States in ways that can extract valuable information to investors, to political donors. That's the essence of corruption. And we need to really pull on these threads very hard and ask ourselves, you know, why is it, this story, particular story is about, you know, why did Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett and the incoming Obama administration allow the primary opponent, and I will not use the phrase, let's just say defeated solidly. Why did Team Obama allow Team Clinton to have so many Clinton people inside the government in the very beginning? I mean, Eric Holder was a Clinton person. He's the Attorney General. Hillary Clinton, she's the Secretary of State. Why did he allow all this? You know, and how could the team that was supposed to monitor Hillary Clinton let her get away with what she was getting away with, using, you know, basically monetizing the Secretary of State Department and maybe other departments for the personal benefit of her husband and daughter and extended family, and then for the benefit of the foundation, and nobody objected? There's no evidence that anybody objected. I mean, we really have to get into this in some depth.
She basically enabled super chat on the Secretary of State position, and people were just sending money.
Exactly.
But a serious thing, Charles, I was speaking with Cheryl Atkinson briefly yesterday, and she was telling me some more about how she has new information that they actually switched a hard drive in her computer. And I was looking into this a little bit. You know, I'm sure you know, but who the first president to ever send a tweet was?
I don't.
It was Barack Obama. So he really, in many ways, we never heard so much about cyber warfare before the Obama presidency. Remember, he claimed North Korea hacked Sony. That's an absurd claim, and no proof was ever presented to us that that was true. I really do believe that the Barack Obama administration and the, you know, what you've outlined in our shows is that we basically see through the Bushes, the Clintons, and now possibly the Obamas, the establishment of these presidential crime families almost. And I believe that Obama may be using some of these cyber warfare techniques against citizens of the United States, like Cheryl, possibly even myself. I don't, not Barack Obama wiretapping me, but agents working on his behalf. We've had a lot of, you know, sock puppets, astroturfing, all these things that we know they do from reading Cheryl's book. It's interesting to see. Yep. We'll see where it goes.
So if we go back into the old slides here, congratulations to you and to Harmon. I suppose we should pull up the one link of Harmon.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a fellow in New Zealand, Bilyana, who has been basically made stateless for challenging President Clinton when he was president, and he's now systematically exposing. He started, I guess, making headway with you, Jason, with me on our show, and then Jason's been doing some specials, and they're really getting picked up around the world, and good for you, Jason.
Well, we've actually started a series.
Sure.
Sorry, what's that, Bilyana?
I watched the whole thing. It's an absolutely incredible story, and read his documents, and it's unbelievable. Like, you watch it.
Shocking, for sure. And we've started a new series called America's First Refugee, because he really has escaped. You know, he's gone to New Zealand to seek political asylum from persecution here in the United States. It really is shocking. I don't think people realize the full gravity of it just yet.
Exactly. So congratulations to you for that. we don't have to pull this next link up, I'll run through it. It seems that the uranium-1 informant who came forward in, I want to say October of last year, maybe more like November, but anyway, this is a person who was involved at the behest of the FBI, trying to stay on top of meddling that was occurring involving Russian elements in our uranium industry, in the trucking industry surrounding uranium. And instead of being encouraged, this person was, I would argue, persecuted by our own government. Yeah. And he tried to come forward with the whole truth. Before the election, he wasn't able to, but ultimately he came forward. And he's been noticeably silent in the last, I would say, 2 months, which is a good thing, because to me it means that he's been actively cooperating with various investigators. And I would look for a lot more information coming out soon on this whole uranium-1 scandal and its wider extent. It's not simply a Russian scandal. The uranium market, as we've discussed on the show before, we've got Australia, we've got Canada, we've got the United States, Russia, a number of other nations, all in a small number of nations are involved in the uranium area. So that if you can, Kazakhstan, a very important one. So you can basically corner the market for uranium by focusing on a very limited number of countries. And what we didn't emphasize enough on that show, is my fault, is that our Navy, our big ships, a lot of them depend on nuclear fuel, particularly our aircraft carriers. So, we do not want to be beholden to other nations' supplies of uranium. And I think this whole episode of what really did happen, how far back did this whole uranium-1 energy scandal go? It's not simply about uranium, it's also about energy. And we have to go all the way back into Clinton's career as president, and then forward to really understand what actually was happening. I feel this man Campbell is going to shed a lot of important light on it. So I want to give also a shout out to Utrice Lead, if we can pull this one link up. Utrice is a veteran host at the Progressive Radio Network, which is a left-leaning network, and she's been very kind to me. I've been on her show, I don't know how many different times, probably 50 or more. And she is relentless. I mean, she's anti-corruption, whether she didn't care about the political party, she's anti-corruption. She's actually against, very much against the Obamas, the Clintons, obviously the Bushes. And what I was talking about with her, she asked me to come back and reprise what I had said about General Electric, and General Electric is very much back in the news again. Yeah. Its stock price has been crushed, and it's, I think, going to head lower, all because interest rates are finally rising again. And in this audio, which is about 50 minutes or so, we go through some of that. And as I would guess, I'll be talking about General Electric, at least with her, and possibly back on Bloomberg and CNBC and Fox Business again, because that company, after 10 years, they didn't really learn anything. They didn't fix it. And instead they paid executives billions of dollars.
Oh, they could take over the DNC.
That's right. Who knows, they probably were running the DNC. So if we go back into the slide quickly, I noticed this, Bilyana, and this isn't a tag yet for you to go into your thing, but I noticed this link that a woman in Sweden is facing 2 years in jail for sharing something about Islam?
Yes, it was a joke, which I saw when it was posted. And it was, it really, I mean, I've been thinking about this. When I grew up in socialistic time, in socialistic Bulgaria, we were joking non-stop. It was the toughest and roughest jokes you can imagine. Privately, of course, we were joking privately. And now we can't joke anymore.
Can you tell our viewers what this says? It's in Swedish here?
I
don't think so.
Produce a Muslim.
Huh.
You first step number one, you remove the brain.
I see that. Yeah,
I
see
the
picture now.
You exchange the brain with shit, and then step number 3, you put the bandage around it, and then step number 4, you let this person loose. And so it's a very offensive joke, but it's meant as a joke. I mean, she's facing 2 years prison as far as I know.
See, that's an impingement on freedom of speech, because jokes are one thing if someone were making a specific accusation about a specific person, that's another. But this is specifically the type of thing that freedom of speech is supposed to protect.
Exactly.
No, the opposite. They actually, funny enough, actually it's the opposite because it mentions the word Muslim. So it's not against one particular person. It's not defamation of one person. It's defamation of an entire ethnic group. And in that case, it's called hate speech. So the Swedish law for hate speech, which I read recently, protects any race, gender, group of people, but not political groups, only for religion and ethnicity, gender membership. That's the only thing that it refers to, the hate speech law. And it's called hets mot folkgrupp, which means, literally translated, it means that you are instigating hatred against a group of people.
Well,
sorry?
What we're going to do, Bilyana, is we're going to instigate hatred against a group of people who follow the Clintons. Because
well, then you're not protected. You know, not protected by a law because it is not an ethnic group. It's a political group.
So what we'll do here, and I promise I'll be quick. On purpose, what we did is we prepared the slides this way so that people can read them in their own time. But there's a big question as to when Sweden actually became involved supporting the Clinton Foundation. If you look at a lot of the emails that I've had back and forth with the government, what they're trying to argue is that they really didn't get involved until 2010, 11, 12, that time frame. The truth is, as revealed in a lot of books that have been written both by Bill Clinton and by people close to Bill Clinton, the truth is that Sweden began to become engaged supporting the Clinton Foundation's illegal activities, in theory fighting HIV/AIDS internationally, in 2003. And with this lady, I don't know, is it Annika Soder, or how do you pronounce that? S-O-D-E-R, with a little thingy over the O? Annika Soder, who was then State Secretary for International Development Cooperation, oversaw CETA in 2003. I think after that she went on to be, was it in the WHO or some other places? But
I don't know this person.
Yeah.
But a pretty famous person, and she was instrumental in 2003 helping the Clinton Foundation move its activities around, and Sweden channeled money to Tanzania to help fund a program that the Clinton Foundation was basically designing. But the problem with that is that in 2003, the Clinton Foundation had no authority whatsoever to fight anything internationally, let alone HIV/AIDS. And in their filings for 2003, they actually, with a straight face, claim that they paid not one individual anything to do programs during the entire year. Instead, they had this $1.8 or $9 million amount for special projects, which they don't explain. So it's a transparent, they knew they were in trouble actually when they put the forms together. They put the 2003 forms together in 2004, and they must have known they were in trouble. Oh, what's going on? There you go. So they tried to disguise the fact that they were engaged in this HIV/AIDS operation in 2003. But here we have evidence from a close friend of Bill Clinton who's written multiple books about the Clinton, Joe Conason. And Joe, I love you, man. Your writing is great. Thank you for giving us a confession of charity fraud that runs to about 300 pages with footnotes. We've provided a link to our viewers so you can buy the book, read, you'll see what I'm talking about. This book came out in September of 2016. under a theory then that Hillary Clinton would be the next president of the United States and get away with all this. But I'm amazed they actually published this book. I'm amazed that I have a copy, so you can't take it away from me at this point. And other friends of mine have it. But this is a must-read. I don't know, Bilyana, if you've read it, but it's a great book because it shows just how far off base the Clinton Foundation went. The other thing is that this MOU, and again, we've put this up a bunch of times, so we don't need to do it again. The agreement between the incoming Obama administration and the Clinton Foundation, but not with Bill Clinton, recounts extensively the role of Sweden in the Clinton Foundation by December 12, 2008. And you know, though Sweden was routing money to HIV projects in various governments around the world in this time frame, they didn't disclose any of the links. And the reason I feel they didn't and haven't wanted to disclose them is because of the Clinton Foundation's ties to Ranbaxy, that they were actually, Swedish government money was likely used to purchase adulterated drugs that were distributed in countries like Tanzania and the other countries that Sweden was involved with the Clinton Foundation. And the Swedish government is resisting explaining what actually happened to this taxpayer funds because, you know, it's worse than embarrassing to admit that you would cooperate with an unregistered charity run by a former president and an aspiring future president that had gone this far off the rails.
They had to know.
Of course they had to know.
At this point, start to believe that that's very possible to happen, and they will not admit it.
Yeah. Well, they're going to be forced to admit it. So the thing that is also interesting is that the financial reports of the Clinton Foundation for 1998 through 2007, we've covered this before, for all of those years on the federal tax forms, and we don't have to pull them up, all of those years, there's a line on the federal tax form that says government grants, and you have to put the total amount of money that governments gave to the Clinton Foundation in the years 1998 to 2007, year by year by year. And they have not yet put that number in any form, even though we know Saudi Arabia gave them 10 million bucks in 2004. We know that. Yeah. It's not, the answer is zero. The problem in a tax form like this is if you make one mistake, one material error, then if the IRS wants to make an issue of it, they can go all the way back into this time frame to the very beginning and cause you a heap of pain. And the question is, you know, why hasn't the IRS done anything? Even now, it's, you know, it's what is today, March 4th.
When is that new guy getting down to brass tacks?
I don't think he's in yet. I think
what is going on?
I think, you know, Chuck E. Cheese Schumer, the senator who, influential Democratic senator, is putting the slow walk, you know, the slow roll against anybody who Trump nominates for any key position. He's just taking him forever. So the other thing, we put this, I think, up before Bilyana. The last time you were up, we put a bunch of links to stories. And why don't we actually just hit this one, the third one here.
Is it called The Indicter?
Yeah.
That's a good newspaper.
Yeah. This is, I think you've met this fellow, Bilyana, or at least you know of this fellow. And this is, this fellow listened to our broadcast the last time we were together in December and then wrote this story.
Wait, who wrote it? It says by Charles Ortega.
Oh,
yes.
No, it wasn't really by me. It was by, I was answering questions by the guy who put this thing together.
Got it.
Yeah. But I love the picture he came up with.
Yeah, he did a very good, I thought it was a very good article, and he did it very quickly after the conversation. He's a professor, and Marcello Noli, and a very nice person to be in touch with here in Sweden.
Yeah. So we put a few links up there. People can read those at their leisure. And now we'll just jump back into the old next page. Yeah. All right, so I want to just take a few seconds here. I promise I'll be quick. What I've lifted here are the actual authorized tax-exempt purposes of the Clinton Foundation. And what matters is not what you put in a marketing brochure or on a television advertisement or in a nice letter to supporters. What matters, the only thing that matters under U.S. law about what a charity can and cannot do is what's in its Articles of Incorporation. There are two documents. There's the Articles of Incorporation, and then there are the bylaws. The Articles of Incorporation are the controlling legal document for a nonprofit corporation. In that document, if it wants to be a federally tax-exempt charity, it must limit itself to specific purposes. Absolutely specific. You can't be general and like you do in a business, the way you might do in your business and I do in my businesses, Bilyana and hers. You don't say, well, we're setting up this business to do anything we might want to do. We're setting it up. It has to be very specific purposes. And what the Clinton Foundation said they wanted to do, I put it in red, to establish and support a presidential archival depository, and I put the words in Little Rock, Arkansas. Very specific. That's what they signed up to do. As such an entity is defined in this statute, United States Statute, Title 44, Section 21011. That's very specific. It says a presidential archival depository actually is to hold, not the way they write it in this document, anything related to Bill Clinton's life. No, it's supposed to hold the presidential records that are created during a president's tenure.
He's got like his golf clubs, his laundry, whatever.
Nah, yet. It's supposed to be primarily to hold the presidential records, and presidential records are defined in the Presidential Records Act of 1978. It's not like you can make this stuff up. You got to do what you said you were going to do. Now, the wiggle room, yeah, there you go, is that they thought they could maybe get into new areas by focusing on this sentence. The corporation may engage in any and all other charitable, educational, and scientific activities. Okay? But that's not what it says. I put in caps here, if we can take down the color. Permitted to an organization exempt from federal income taxes under Section 501c3 of the Code. That's an important modifier in that sentence, right? The only permitted activities are those that further these purposes, establishing and supporting a presidential archival depository and a related research facility. You can't say, well, I can do that, and then anything else is charitable or educational or scientific, whatever, you know. That's not the way it works, okay? So this operative section of the Articles of Incorporation, this key section, has never been amended since October 23rd, 1997. Other elements have been amended to change the name, to change a few other things, but not the controlling area, the purposes. So by March 24th, 2004, this presidential foundation decided to set up a new subsidiary and thought that, you know, what, the main body can't do it. We'll set up a subsidiary and we'll have the subsidiary fight AIDS. Now, when we look here, it says it's going to be exclusively charitable. Okay, that's all right. But and the activities will be limited to bringing high-quality medical care and treatment to people living with HIV/AIDS. It doesn't say and other infectious diseases. It says just HIV/AIDS, to educating the public about HIV/AIDS prevention and treatment, and to improving health delivery systems for HIV/AIDS patients. That's what this was supposed to do. But it wasn't allowed to do that because this entity was controlled by the parent, and the parent did not amend its Articles of Incorporation to allow it to do this activity. So this was a sham transaction done by an idiot. Really.
How do you really feel?
No, I mean, seriously, I am not a lawyer, but I've spent now 3 years on this, and all you need to do is be able to speak and comprehend English to understand how this works. It's not complicated. The IRS does not want to create slush funds where people fly around the world at great expense, claiming they're doing good works, and then have no controls and have money just, you know, disappear and be used as a clearinghouse for corruption involving political dynasties. That's not what this is meant to be.
When's the moment coming, Charles? We've heard that Mueller may indict Trump for obstruction of justice, and nothing is happening with any of this?
Well, let me keep going, and
Sorry.
It's all right. So they tried this on March 24th. They began operating. They submitted an application. It was not approved, and they had to cover all this stuff up. So they just blurred the waters. From 2006, there was a pivotal election. Hillary had to get reelected. They get through all of that. Obama becomes president. Somebody says, you know what? We got to fix this. So they decide they're going to create this new entity. We'll get into this in a second. Clinton Health Access Initiative on the 4th of September 2009. And here you see the definition of what they can do is broadened to be broader than just fighting HIV/AIDS. Now, we're going to be working with governments and non-governmental organizations to prevent the spread of infectious diseases such as HIV/AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. I mean, I understand from talking to experts that people with HIV/AIDS often present with related or other diseases like malaria and tuberculosis, and it's tough to say, you know, which came first, which poison came first, or which virus came first. But that said, their original aim was to fight HIV/AIDS. Now they're into malaria and tuberculosis, and who knows what else they think they're going to be. And this is precisely why the IRS wants you to limit your activities to a specific core. Because the tendency of humans is to aggrandize, to say, you know, I started with this, you know, one house is not enough, why don't I have 2 and 4, and now a boat and a plane? And, you know, so the IRS knew that, and they want to see you focused, actually achieving charitable good works. So this is just one by way of background so that people understand some of the legal elements. If we go to the next page. So we talked about the attempt to set up the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative. They actually have set up 7 fake charities in the United States alone.
Wow.
And I bring all of this up, and others in Canada and the UK and Africa and Asia, etc. I bring this up because now we're getting into a mode of saying, all right, the Swedish government, I have the highest respect for you, and I really have a lot of friends in Sweden and a lot of experience in Sweden. And when Swedish people want to behave and abide by the law, they're very smart, they get into the facts, they understand the situation, they apply the relevant laws. It would not have taken the leading partner in Sweden, an expert on charity law, to look into the record and say, wait a minute, this Clinton Foundation is a complete mess, right? It was made by the same people who were making that Muslim man, doing the same approach, taking out the brain and putting in the whatever into each of these foundations. You can't they got into HIV/AIDS, they created this thing to fight, to provide disaster relief. They did it all wrong around the Katrina disaster. They created the Clinton Grifter Initiative. We've talked about that. That's not a charity. The Health Access, that's not done right. The Haiti thing wasn't done right. You know, setting up a charity to make sure that people eat right is not necessarily a charity, particularly if what you're doing is promoting products
From
like
your restaurant.
Well, not only soda.
Yeah.
You know, you create a beverage alliance to get these beverage companies to sell their beverages in the schools, and you say that that's charity when it's promoting the sale of Pepsi-Cola. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yes, this is a ridiculous one.
Right, and then this, and the 7th one, we're going to do actually. We generally don't do this, but we are going to do a special segment on climate change. With the working title is going to be Kermit the Frog from, was it Sesame Street or not Sesame Street?
Yeah.
Sesame Street. And the title is going to be It's Not Easy Being Green. And we're going to go, that's the song that he sang. And we're going to take people through exactly why this C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group is a complete fraud. From the very beginning, right the way through to the present. So the important thing is if you're a U.S. charity, which the Clinton Foundation in theory is, it has to be organized day one lawfully, on the date that it's organized. If you make a mistake in your filings, you cannot correct them, right? You're out of luck. You've got to make sure when you organize the thing, day one it's lawfully organized, and every moment thereafter it has to be operated lawfully in compliance with state, federal, city, regional, and foreign laws. You've got to do all that. You know, because you stand in the shoes of government when you operate a charity. That's the way our charities are supposed to work, and that's the way the overwhelming majority of them do work. Then you have to, it's a small subset of U.S. charities, tiny subset that operates internationally. Most of our charities operate inside the United States of America. What they're doing is volunteers get together, people who make less money than some of our highly paid government bureaucrats, do the work that the government might otherwise do, and therefore relieves the burden of government. And that's why it makes sense for charities to have tax breaks. If the donors get tax breaks, the charity doesn't pay corporate. It makes sense because if it's done right, this activity lessens the burden of government, the cost of government. On the other hand, charities that operate internationally, how do those benefit the United States of America? You've got to make sure that they do. And there's a whole bunch of special rules that apply to international charities, chief of which is that a U.S. charity operating internationally must be tightly controlled from a U.S. base. You've got to produce records in the local currency of your revenues, your expenses in every country where you operate, and you're supposed to share those on your tax filings, which the Clintons have never done. You're supposed to have a real auditing firm, not BKD and Jaime Minuchin or whoever else. You roll out for these different charities. You're not allowed to do that. You can't have the directors be, well, let me think. I want to have a really independent group, so why don't I put the thing in charge of my husband, my wife, the wife, and the daughter. Let them control everything. There's no possible conflict of interest there. You can't do that. And finally, a U.S. charity cannot engage in any illegal activities. That's
like goes without saying. Obviously, it's illegal.
Well, it does. It should go without saying, but it's really bright line law. In the case of a corporation, a for-profit corporation, it is presumed by investors and by regulators that people who are chasing profit are going to skirt the rules eventually. Somebody's going to figure out that that goes far towards the line, maybe across the line, and maybe they'll get away with it. Maybe they won't. But when they get caught, typically what happens with a for-profit corporation is you pay a fine and maybe people go to jail, but the corporation marches along. Not so with a not-for-profit. You're standing in the shoes of government. You can't countenance that a charity is going to break the laws. So the rules normally are very strict, but the Clintons and the Obamas and the Bushes figured out, well, that may be, but what we'll do is we'll just make sure we game the attorneys general, we game the judges, we game everybody, and we'll break the laws and nobody will prosecute us. So going back to why is it taking so long, they've been breaking the laws for so long in so many places that once you open up a little bit of this, you open up and expose the largest unprosecuted fraud in history, and a lot of people start asking big questions and started demanding that many famous people go to jail. That's why this is taking so long. If we go to the next page.
I have a question.
Sure.
Soros has a lot of charities, and they operate internationally, almost all of them. How does that relate to what you're saying? Like how the charities is one major basic charity is defined, and how other charities related to it or originating from it are proceeded with internationally, so to say. Because now, if you have the Open Society charity, you have also many other small charities besides that one. It has extremely diverse use all around the world. Are all these uses really listed there? Because you can't list everything he's really doing there. Would he list, for instance, I need to solicit political influence in European countries or in Sweden? If he spells this out, is this legal then?
Well, no. So I'm not an expert on the Open Society charities or the Soros charities. I have looked through some of them. And the simple way to think about it is, if it's a U.S. charity, and there is one, but there are several U.S. Soros charities, a U.S. charity is not allowed to engage in partisan political activity inside or outside the United States. You're not allowed to do that, okay? If it's a U.S. charity. If I am aware that Soros has an Open Society or OSI charity in Zug, Switzerland, I think. And as an American, you are allowed to set up a charity in a foreign country. So when you do that, you've got to make sure that you respect the cantonal and national laws of Switzerland. I do not know what those laws are as respecting Zug and Switzerland. But I do know that the Soros, various sundry Soros charities do actively, he personally and his charities actively supports what are called 501c4 organizations that can engage in political activity, and worse, 501c3s like Media Matters, which persecutes conservatives
Yeah.
in the guise of being a charity. You're not allowed to do that, but again, Soros relies on the fact that the apparatus that in theory regulates charities is chiefly favorable to progressive and left-leaning causes, and that he's such a deep pocket. You know, he's tried to game the system. He's supporting U.S. state secretaries of state that oversee charities. He's supporting U.S. attorneys general. I mean, he's putting a lot of money. He's a lot at risk here, and he's putting a lot of money behind it.
Charles, you had been in touch with a guy, I forget his name, but he was doing the citizens audit.
Right, Andrew Kerr.
Andrew, right. What's happened with that? He was really pursuing Media Matters and found a lot of potentially illegal activity.
He's pursuing that, and he got a job with Daily Caller.
Oh.
So he's writing for Daily Caller.
Great.
So here I'll just quickly, just so you're aware of this, why it's so crazy, Bilyana, that Sweden's supporting this new chai. This Clinton Health Access Initiative, I call it New Chai to make it simple. There was an old chai and now there's a new chai. It was created illegally on September 29th, 2009. Why do I say it was created illegally? It was created by taking an illegally organized core of the Clinton Foundation and agreeing to transfer it to this new entity without telling the IRS specifically that they were doing that. You're not allowed to do that under US law. When you have a charity, you've got to, in your application to become federally tax exempt, you have to explain whether you are a de novo charity starting from scratch today or whether you're coming out of some predecessor organization. And very clearly, this new chai sprang out of the Clinton Foundation, and it was the piece that they took out of the Clinton Foundation was in 2009 an overwhelming majority of the Clinton Foundation's revenues, expenses, assets, and liabilities. It was, you know, the fundamental core of the business, of the charity. And they lied on their application about that. They also operated simultaneously this new entity, New Chai, from September 29th, 2009 through the end of 2009, and they began to prepare to create this New Chai and spirit Old Chai's assets into New Chai in this time frame. And by the end of this year, $17 million disappears from the books. It's an analysis I did a while back. So it's obvious that there's a major league set of problems here, that anybody who would check the records, which are available, and the Swedish government should have been asking to see these records before they gave all the money to this fraud. It's a basic arithmetic. It's not calculus. It's not complicated math. You don't need a PhD to understand it. The thing existed. They lied about its existence. And more important, they took an entity that was vast and large in which Bill Clinton and Ira Magaziner had no interest whatsoever. Bill was not a trustee. He was not executive. Ira Magaziner was an employee, but they had no right to take these assets. Instead, they take it and they put it in this new entity, and they say, first of all, that the directors have no individual power, but that the Clinton Foundation has the right forevermore to control this entity, this new entity, and furthermore, that Bill has the lifetime right to serve as chairman and a director of the new entity, and Ira, vice chairman and a director. So you're basically creating almost like a noble right that invests Bill and Ira with this lifetime right to control the biggest piece of the Clinton Foundation. And under our laws, the way this type of stuff works is that there's a gigantic conflict of interest here, right? You know,
Yeah.
Bill is on both sides of the coin, Ira's on both sides of the coin. How much money was Ira's consulting firm making off this mess? How much did he make swanning around the world, bragging about all his good works from consulting assignments? How come, investment opportunities, how come none of that is disclosed anywhere in any of these filings? It's just, simple. When I first got into this, I did something called the First Foundation Report, which is April 20th, 2015 on my site. And without answering this question, though I knew the answers back then, I said, how did the board deal with these conflicts of interest? Because there should be minutes. If you have a conflict of interest as a board member, you're supposed to disclose it, and you're supposed to remove yourself from consideration of the transaction, and you're then supposed to normally have a supermajority, a higher vote required to get something like this across the line, because if you do it the wrong way, you blow up your charity.
Well,
right? And they did blow up their charity. And this, you know, the question for the Swedish government and the big Swedish donors is, what law firm did you use to study this? Because make sure you never use them again.
see, that's just it, Charles. Every week we hear, how could they have missed it? There's no way that every person in every government in every country we've been talking about missed this. Someone was getting it by.
Well, as a guess, the crooked elements within Sweden said, you know, this is an obvious fraud. We will have something on Hillary Clinton. We will have something on the Obama administration if we support it, right? And what do we want out of America? We don't. We're trying to do a lot of business in Iran. And America's been giving Iran a hard time. And we have this big telecommunications company, Ericsson, that may have been selling stuff
And
around.
jets.
And jets, Saab jets and stuff like that. So the crooked elements may have looked at this and said, you know, 20 million or 10 million or whatever the right amount is, 31 million, that's chicken feed, we'll say. It's nothing. You know, give them a few bones here. And now suddenly we've got this incredible lever we can use over the Secretary of State, over the President. We'll also, you know, I'm not saying that that this was a part of a plot to give Barack Obama the Nobel Peace Prize, but it will be very embarrassing to the Nobel laureate, you know, if this all blows up in his face. So that could be part of the problem here. Is you're right, that they know it, they saw this, they figured out it was a fraud, and instead of saying, you know, we need to wind it up and never work with these people, they became fraudsters, maybe the Swedish government, and said, you know what?
Well, it seems like that Nobel Prize is given out to legitimize things. I mean, there's a lot of like shifty people who claim to be recommended or nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't think it's that what it once was.
We won't pull these links up because I'm looking at the clock here. The Clinton Foundation, we've said before, it was a disaster shape. That Kumiki Gibson memo.
Yeah.
There had been a robust investigation into Rambaxi by 2009. By the time this was the 29th September 2009, people had to have known that Rambaxi was in diabolical shape and of the ties to the Clinton Foundation. And
yeah, at that time they must have known. I thought the same thing.
so,
Why not check?
So, and the reason we haven't seen these missing emails is because, you know, both the IRS emails and the Clinton Foundation emails is because no doubt there's a flurry of emails back and forth. They're saying, what are we going to do? You know, we've got this problem. Why don't we cure it this way? And they just had to lose all those emails. So if we go to the next page.
The damn emails.
Then, in addition, the reason I'm getting into this is that the Swedish government's support, and indeed Swedish postcode support for this Clinton Foundation Sweden's support increased after the 2nd of November 2013. The 2nd of November 2013, Hillary's on the beach, she's in the woods in Chappaqua, she's not working at Foggy Bottom anymore, and some genius, you know, decides, goes straight from the Chardonnay vat and decides that, you know, what we're going to do here is we're going to take this Clinton Foundation and we're going to basically create a new class of directors, Class A directors, and we're going to say the only people who can be Class A directors are Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton. Now, under U.S. law, when you're dealing with a public charity, not a private foundation, but a public charity, you can't just put your daughter in charge of a charity that's soliciting, you know, money from hundreds of thousands of people around the world because she's one of the world's experts on diarrhea. You
beat me to the joke.
You can't do it. You know, that's not, and because she doesn't care about money. Those are not reasons to elevate your daughter, and you can't actually do what the Clintons did here. We only found out about this move in New York State on June 27th, 2017. Somebody made a mistake, actually, probably releasing this change into the public domain, but they gave themselves lifetime appointments, and they also, we won't read this because it's too long, but at your leisure, read this bottom section in the red here. Basically what they did is they said not only are Class A directors going to have supercharged voting rights, but the Class A directors are going to form the executive committee of the foundation, which will operate the foundation between all the regular meeting dates. So the effective management of the foundation is placed in the hands of Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton by means of this. So therefore you gut the activities of the board. right? You're basically saying no one, at the very end, I will read this, it says something like, you can make decisions, let's see, all actions of the executive committee shall be reported at the next meeting of the board of directors, but shall not be subject to ratification by the board. In other words, this says you'll hold intermittent board meetings. As a guess, they held meetings maybe once a quarter at most, and we'll just tell you at the next board meeting, this is what we did, and we don't care what you think, is basically what this language is. You cannot do what they actually did here.
Board meetings at Hooters.
So, and this is something that, had the public known, had even Bernie Sanders, who now they have a foundation as well, had
Really?
Bernie and his wife known about this, there was no way they would have given Hillary a pass, because she did this, right? She was very much involved in these moves, and was doing this at a time before her campaign, in theory, took off. She wasn't even doing a listening tour at this point to think about being president of the United States in 2013. She was, in theory, writing her book. Why would you do something this stupid? I mean, this just blew the Clinton Foundation up. And these events happened about a couple, 3 months after the famous New York Times story that provoked the furious response by Bill Clinton, unease at the Clinton Foundation over finances by Amy Chozick and somebody else. So, this is really, as far as I'm told by lawyers and others, this is devastating that they did this, and devastating that they tried to hide it, and devastating that the Swedish government didn't figure this out. So if we go to the next page,
Yeah.
this is.
But what are the consequences for the Swedish donor?
Well, you will get into that in a second. So we take it by class. Here's the Swedish government. Now, the Swedish government, actually, for a long period of time, Sweden has been very active internationally with aid projects around the world, AID projects, and I believe spends on a per capita basis or a relative basis, is generous internationally for good reasons, and also to promote the multinational sales of many of these Swedish companies that are so international. So it would make sense, frankly, as a strategy for the government to be active promoting aid projects around the world for many reasons. So here is, we have the link here for people to look at the details. There are many, many details in here, but I arrayed these are grants, and you see the ones in red all occurred after the Clinton Foundation blew itself up. The red amounts, right? So
Charles, do you have any faith remaining that Jeff Sessions is he the man to do anything about this?
I think Mr. Magoo needs to go. As Trump is referred to, I don't know if you know who Mr. Magoo is, Bilyana, but is a cartoon character. I think Jeff Sessions has to go. Absolutely has to go. But just to give people a sense of the scale here, $31.4 million came from the Swedish government from December 1st, 2011 through November 1st, 2017. And indeed, on November 1st, 2017 and on March 1st, 2017, the Swedish government made substantial additional forward commitments to what we call New Chai, right? Which is just a complete fraud. So Bilyana, I think you said under a Freedom of Information Act request, we could see all the emails I want to see every single email back and forth to all parties in connection with these grants. Who did what work? What experts studied any of this?
Yeah.
They're
all complicit.
It's ridiculous. And $31.4 million, is not a lot of money to Jason, but it's a lot of money to most people.
Yes.
That exceeds
That
the
is
art
possible
department
to get.
budget.
I mean, because they are an agency, a state agency, they should provide all communication, written communication.
Yeah, so we'll try to get that, Bilyana. So the first class of donor, the Swedish government, suffers embarrassment. And I don't know that you could sue the Swedish government to get the money back, but there should be a chorus of inquiry here, because it just doesn't make sense to spend this level of money on this fraud for so many times and so many grants. So who did the due diligence of this at CETA? Who examined in 2013, in November 2013, the Clinton, this New Chai restated its financial statements incorrectly in a dramatic fashion that should have raised the hackles of anybody who understands financial statements. Who at CETA examined any of that? Who authorized these contributions?
This should raise the hackles of anyone who has hackles.
That's why there's hackles left.
Yeah.
Who's not
Well,
hackle-free.
responsible at that time was a woman called Isabella Lövin, and she is the she was before in the European Union, represented the European Union, and then at the time of 2014, she joined the socialist government.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and before that, she was responsible for SIDA. I read on her CV that she's still responsible for SIDA. So she's keeping number of posts, not one post in the government, but number of posts. And that person is interesting because she's part of the Green Party and represents the Green Party in the government. And in my experience, in my view, she has an aggressive attitude towards the grievances and the crying of violence that people are experiencing. She's not showing compassion to the people and the victims of that the violence, and she has called more for the attention to the picture of Sweden. That is how Sweden appears to the world, and people have reacted to that she's so concerned with the picture of Sweden, but not with the reality of Sweden and not with the experiences of the people. That lack of compassion and understanding, and even sort of acknowledging the issues that people are pointing out does not exist in what I've heard from her, and she is responsible for SIDA. So if anyone needs to be checked for in this period of time, it's her.
Good. Well, we'll be doing that. So if we go to the next slide, and we're only two more before we get to you, Bilyana. Sorry. This is this entity, the Swedish postcode lottery. I had looked at this beforehand. They claim to have given 10 to 25 million to the Clinton Foundation.
Hey, that's such a broad range.
Right.
How could they not know?
And I promise, for those of us who don't like numbers, I promise I will make this mess of numbers easily understood. This Swedish postcode lottery is part of a network of lotteries run by this company called Nova Media, which is a Dutch company. And it's a for-profit company, Nova Media, all right? So they provide information about the Swedish postcode lottery for the period I was able to get it 2008 to 2015.
But Charles, it's a gambling lottery?
I'll explain the whole thing.
Okay.
So they do deals country by country, and if you're a resident of Sweden, you basically are entered into this lottery. Is it automatically, Bilyana, that you're entered into it?
Sorry, what did you? Automatically?
Are you automatically enrolled as a Swedish resident into the Swedish postcode lottery?
Yes, I think so, because what they're following is the postcode. So everybody is getting invitations to give money to the lottery.
Right.
So yes, I think you're automatically enrolled. I'm getting it.
Right.
I didn't, before even knowing that the Clintons have anything to do with it, I didn't like it.
Right.
So. But everybody's getting it at home, yes.
So if you look at this, guys, this is amounts in euros, okay? The total income over the course of 2008 to 2015 was 2.5 billion euros.
Just from this lottery?
In Sweden, okay? Of that amount, only 837 billion went to charities. 990 went to lottery winners. And 742 million euros, that's over $1 billion, went for overhead.
Wow.
And this is just the Swedish one. There's also a Dutch one, there's an English one, there are other ones. This is not a charity. This is a for-profit enterprise that should be shut down because it's a fraud. It is enriching the people who own the company. You look at the ratio, forget the lottery winner, look at the ratio of total expenses to the amount that went to charity. On average, it's 89% of the money that was spent on charity was used for overhead.
Wow.
89%.
Yes, I know that. Yes.
That's crazy. And what this shows, you see, in rich countries, people are, we feel in this, in America, $10 is nothing, really. I mean, for some people, it's a lot of money, but for most Americans, everybody can come up with $10. And during a disaster, people will give $10, $20 to help people out. This just shows you how deep the reservoir is of kindness in a place like Sweden. And if you could come up with $2.5 billion, 100%, or let's say 95% of that money should go to the worthy cause. It shouldn't be going to people doing lotteries. It certainly shouldn't go $1 billion for overhead. You don't need $1 billion in overhead here. It's crazy. And as a guess, the people who are providing marketing services to these charities are affiliates or subsidiaries or somehow related to Nova Media. So what this is a way to make the people behind Nova Media rich. Then you look, we provided a link here to these annual reports. In every single annual report, you will see a Clinton mugshot. At one gala, another speech. We haven't yet gone to the exercise of seeing, when Bill Clinton is flown over to one of these galas, who pays his expenses? Is he given a fee? Are his handlers given fees? Are people close to the Clintons in this expense pool for Nova Media? This is something that is a disgrace in my view.
But what is it, the postcode lottery? Is it a mandatory lottery, or is it just a gambling game that people play?
Well, it started out as the brainchild of this couple, with the post office system obviously knows where everybody is.
Right.
Anybody who isn't homeless has an address. So it started out as a theoretical way to help people out. It is a gigantic charity, actually. Even though they take so much in the way of expenses, if you add all this stuff up, they've sent a fair amount of money to charity, but they've sent a gigantic amount as well in expenses. So it's a deal that you cut between a private company, a public-private partnership. I hate these things.
I want to say, what I read about it, Nova Media here, and I will show later what I found. I went through also their yearly expenses and so on. What I noticed is that there is one company, Nova Media, but in Holland, but there is a Nova Media company in Sweden, so it's called the Nova Media company in Sweden. And they are paying a license for the license of doing this business to the Dutch company, but there is a separate Swedish company here that company. I wonder if it's the company that is doing it or it's the foundations that are associated with it, because there is a foundation called Postcode Lottery Foundation, and then there is a Postcode Lottery Association. And then there is a Postcode Lottery Foundation for sports and Postcode Lottery Foundation for culture. All those have many, many employees. And actually, as far as I can see, a lot of money are just going to pay the salaries of these people.
Well, and you see, this is precisely why the rules in theory in the United States are so strict. You need to tease out in the United States, if this were a U.S. charity, you would have to explain all of those relationships, all the affiliates. You can't have, raise money in Sweden and then use it to go back into the Dutch overhead, or to somehow enrich an advertising agency that might be controlled by some. You're not allowed to do any of that kind of stuff. But as a guess, that's what was done here. And as a further point, I would guess here the big hole in which money may disappear in something like this is actually over here. Thinking about what the true income of the charity might be. There is a chance that they raised even more than 2.5 billion euros, and they keep the difference, and they say, you know what, we raised 2.5 billion, that's a lot of money, when in fact they raised 16 billion. And you just don't know because nobody's checking too carefully. And who's interested in all this? The politicians, rich people, etc. This is something that is, to me, it screams out for a special investigation into this company and all of its conflicts. Because, chief among which, why did it give money to the Clinton Foundation, of all things? Why did it give 10 to 25 million to a foundation that is a patent fraud? And I didn't check the other ones. As a guess, there are other ones that are probably, fraud. So if it's this loosely controlled, these many red flags, this entity needs to be aggressively studied, and we're going to be going country by country. We're going to bring it up in the UK, we're going to go into Holland and other countries, and we're going to go after this thing.
Frauds of a feather flock together.
The thing is, the postcode lottery has an effect politically because it is supporting a political person, political personality with political ambitions. But nobody I meet here knows about it. So people are buying and contributing to the postcode lottery, but they're not aware where the money are actually going.
There's something about the name that just confuses me, because postcode lottery almost sounds like you're going to get something randomly from the government related to your address or something, like a green card lottery, but it's just like lotto, pick six, you just put in your money and play.
More or less. And also, I didn't put it up here, but in addition to the 10 to 25 million that the Swedish entity gave, the Dutch entity gave over 25 million to the Clinton Foundation to fight It's Not Easy Being Green climate change, even though the Clinton Foundation has never had valid legal authority to do anything related to the environment, let alone the amorphous concept of fighting climate change. No authority for that. So if we go to the next page, and then we're one slide away from you, Bilyana. I'm sorry I've been going on so long.
No.
This is the Clintons actually decided they'd set up a foundation in the UK in 2007 and gotten away with that. They'd set up a foundation in Canada, joint venture, they got away with that. They decided, well, why don't we set up a foundation with the same name in Sweden? And it's unclear to me exactly when it was set up, whether it's sometime in 2011 or by 2012, exactly when. We'll get to the bottom of that. Our friend John Solomon, who's a very well-known investigative journalist, both Jason and I know him, wrote actually an award-winning piece in the Washington Times in 2015 that goes through the fact that the Swedish entity collected $26 million. It's a lot of money. That's what they disclosed as having been collected. We're not sure what entities actually gave money to the Swedish entity yet. The Clinton Foundation description of what this entity was supposed to do was implementing long-term solutions focused on climate change, improving health systems in the developing world, strengthening economic development around the world, and fighting childhood obesity. The Clinton Foundation is not approved for any of that. So you can't just create a subsidiary in Sweden to do that unless you have, at the parent company level, authority to do all that the right way, and they never had. So this whole thing is a fraud in Sweden. This thing that collected 26 million. I don't know what the rules are in Sweden for forming an organization. I don't know what disclosures are available in Swedish. I don't speak Swedish. I don't know whether you needed to have an audit. If so, I don't know who did the audit. You know, but this is the third leg of the stool. So we talk about 31 million from the government, 26 million this way. It's possible that some of the postcode lottery stuff may have gone into this thing and then to the Clinton Foundation. So we don't know that it necessarily that it's additive. If everything were distinct, 10 to 25, call it 10 postcode money, 31 government, that's 41 plus 26. You're talking almost $70 million came out of Sweden to these frauds, and nobody seems to care.
You know, Charles, this is maybe non sequitur, but a while ago, Quinn Michaels was talking about a really sophisticated and powerful AI that was created or controlled by IKEA.
Yeah, well, the IKEA Foundation is another interesting one. We're going to be getting into that. That's another set of issues. I think the IKEA Foundation is in Holland, though, isn't it?
It's like crappy furniture and fraud. One-stop shopping.
Well, so what happens is, just since you brought it up, what can happen is that very rich people with a guilty conscience set up foundations to try to
more?
Well, no, to try to say, well, I'm a philanthropist, I'm giving back. And in the case of the IKEA Foundation, the people behind IKEA are extraordinarily rich, and the IKEA Foundation is actually pretty chintzy relative to the size of their gigantic fortune. But you raise a great point. So we've talked about this before, and Bilyana, I'm getting you ready. I'm going to turn the baton over to you in about 30 seconds. The Simpson-Thatcher review that happened in 2011 did not address any of the international issues of any kind. Of course it should have. And had they done that, they would have seen all these problems. And the Swedish government and the Swedish donors that gave money starting late in 2011 should certainly have been going to the Clinton Foundation and saying, have there been any independent legal reviews of your foundation done recently? Please give us freedom to see that review. Please really tell the law firm we want to see it, which is what I would do if I were a donor. And we also know about the infamous Doug Band memo, which happened in this same time frame, where Doug Band basically bragged about how he helped Bill Clinton break the law.
I love that.
And use the foundation. And he's a lawyer. He's still a member of the bar in Florida. I don't know how that works, but
getting the band back together. The problem with lawyers and doctors and auto mechanics is that you don't know when you have a bad one until it's too late.
That's a good one. And with that, I think we're on to you, Bilyana. We've got a nice slideshow for our audience, and thank you for your patience. And over to you.
Thank you.
So we've got a PowerPoint that you've created, and
that's interesting.
No, there it is. Right?
Yep.
Can you see that, Bilyana?
Yeah. Oh, okay. You're showing it. I have it also on my computer, but anyway, I mean, it would have been. I had prepared my presentation more like my story, but would have been good to connect it to what you were saying. Mainly, my first thought, or kind of the reason why I wanted us to talk about Sweden today, was because the Swedish Prime Minister is visiting the White House and Trump for the first time since the election. And that is that is a special event, because I have never seen a more negative, abusive, and humiliating treatment of a politician or even a person in the Swedish media than Trump. So now the question is, I'm watching, and how is the media reacting to the fact that Trump is actually a president, and the prime minister has to visit him. He's invited. They have meeting on the 6th now of March. I wonder what will happen, because there is not much discussion about it in Swedish media, almost nothing. It has been mentioned that he's going there, and he almost had to apologize that he's going. He had to motivate, explain that he has been invited by President Trump, and that's why he has to go. But the media here is either silent, ignoring it, or kind of negative and wanting explanations for it. How come that he's going to, the Swedish Prime Minister is going to visit Trump, as if he's not allowed to do it? Which is very childish attitude, as if they don't realize that Trump is the president of the United States, and he has been democratically elected. So for us who are watching this and seeing it with from that perspective, it's an interesting process. It's an interesting time to see how they will make this change, because they were really abusing Trump for a few years now. And right? Sorry?
May I ask, were you living in Sweden when Olof Palme was assassinated?
I didn't live in Sweden when Olof Palme was assassinated, and recently there was apparently, I haven't seen it, but some program about his assassination and what kind of mistakes were made, and massive amount of police mistakes were made. A friend of mine retold me the story, but no, I haven't. I didn't live there at that time.
Yeah. Is there a humming sound?
Yeah. So, sorry.
No, it's okay. Nothing. All right.
Sorry, please continue.
Yeah. Now, it's good that you mentioned Palme. That was the time when you had also some turbulence, where quite famous people, such as Bergman, for instance, was very upset because he was mistreated by the tax authorities, and he even ran away from Sweden and went to live in the United States. very offended by the way that he has been treated. So you see that there is history in Sweden of so somehow
globalist corruption.
Sorry.
Globalist corruption.
There is, I mean, at that time it was the tax authorities like pushing for extremely leftist, extremely socialistic type of governance in Sweden. But what I notice here is that after these 2 or almost 3 years of abusive humiliation of President Trump, and he's not protected by hate speech for some reason. He should be. Now I see in the media that they're starting to describe his administration as a troubled administration, and when you read the news, they're only counting who is leaving Trump. So now Hope Hicks left Trump, but they're counting the people who are leaving Trump, and they feel that this is they give you the feeling that this administration's days are counted, and it's just going to end very soon, any moment. He's not really there, and if he's there, he's just there very temporarily, and that kind of message they're giving to people and to the readers is not very helpful, because it doesn't really reflect the reality of what's going on in the United States. President Trump is doing a lot of work and a lot of changes, for instance, with the tax cuts and employment, with destroying the gang violence, or making efforts in this direction. You don't hear any of that. You don't hear the positive or sort of the efforts that the administration is doing. You're only hearing I would say, like gossip from the White House, and that's the level of journalism we have in Sweden today. Gossip level.
Perhaps they're just translating CNN.
They are very much translating CNN and Washington Post, Huffington Post and Washington Post. I noticed that sometimes they translate Politico and The Hill also, but it's a translation and sort of pretending to do journalism most of the time. The reason why there is such lack of analysis is because they have no freedom for analysis. Even if they wanted to do it, they can't, because the discussion is set and the analysis is set. There are no other views that can be given, and if you give another view, you're already called something, Nazi or right-wing extremist or something like extremely. I would say at this point, it's debilitating and stupid analysis and discussion, political discussion. One can't even call it a political discussion anymore. So that's kind of to start with, and I wonder what President Trump is going to approach Sweden, given that he's aware that his image here has been extraordinarily negative. So now my second slide that you're showing now is about altering the Swedish constitution. The same government that is leading this assault on Trump for so long, very positive to Clinton all the time, are now suggesting a change in the Swedish constitution. They want to limit freedom of speech, particularly to limit public access to public criminal records. And this is very interesting that it's coming now and how it's coming, because but the first time you and I had talked, Jason, was when I was talking about the gang rapes in Sweden and increasing number of rapes in Sweden in general. And the site that I had seen was an American site called gangrapesweden.com, American media. Site that was informing about this and giving lists with the rapes cases. Now that site was closed. That it was attacked by a number of so-called grassroots organizations that are actually now getting funded by the government. and the site disappeared. But there is another site that actually
Wait,
has
Bilyana, can I ask you a quick question? I noticed your air quotes when you said grassroots. Do you think it's a false grassroots campaign? Is it an AstroTurf campaign by chance?
The reason why I think it's not really grassroots is because we have found that number of people from the government are involved in these organizations.
So they're leading it. It's a false grassroots movement. It doesn't start and grow up on its own. Someone's planting that grass.
Exactly. This is what I think is going on. Yes. They have to make it in a democracy. You have to make it. It has to be as if it's coming from the. It has to be appear as if it's coming from the people. But there is plenty of evidence to show that there are politicians involved in this, and how the funding is going to it. And now, most officially from 1st of March, the government is officially sponsoring these organizations so that they can deal with hate speech online. That is, they would spy on what people are saying, and then they would prosecute. Mass prosecutions. I'm going to show you some statistics about this. But what I wanted to say is that the site Gang Rape Sweden made big news here, and it was called racist and right-wing extremism. I have to really think about this because it makes absolutely no sense to call it that way. Only because it is actually informing you about the criminal statistics, and it is an American site, so it has nothing to do really with with Sweden. But there is a site called Lexbase in Sweden, and that site has a license, and it shows criminal records. And you can find out there if there is in your neighborhood or in a place where you're moving, if there is, for instance, pedophiles or people that in one or another way you would like to stay away with or be aware of. And that site has existed for a long time. I didn't know about it, and it has a license to exist. Now, these kind of sites will not exist if this law goes through. You would not be able to have this kind of information. It will be hidden from the public. The criminal records will be hidden from the public. You will have no access to them. The only people that will have access to them would be politicians and establishment journalists. And of course, the judiciary body, they will have access to it. So now the question is, who are those journalists that are going to have this privileged access? And the established journalists, which are extremely left journalists, already have this access because Expo, for instance, the organization called Expo, which is also a foundation, which is also a magazine, the founder, not the founders, but the leaders of this organization now are also journalists, and they have companies, and these companies have access to the criminal records, and they've been informing about this even in the media. I read about it in the media. So now the effect of that will be that first we have much less freedom of speech in that sense, because we have no access to information about criminal records, and the journalists who will have that information it will be possible for them to be spied on, because they have to be watched and seen what they're doing. They're introducing also pre-censorship of articles that are published in the news. So they want to sort of control more and more the media. The text is quite long, and there are very few people that actually have read the entire text and understand the entirety of the changes that are suggested. But most of the parties in the parliament have accepted this, except one party, and this is the party called Swedish Democrats. and they have suggested a referendum that people are going to vote for the changes in the constitution, which makes, of course, perfect sense. The problem is that since the media are so extremely controlled, they are not reporting on this. So none of my neighbors or people I communicate with are aware that the government is on the way to change the constitution and limit their freedom of speech or access to public records, or give this information only to certain journalists but not other journalists. And that's an interesting fact per se. Then we have, as you can see, another attack on the citizen journalism, and I thought about it because you had issues, Jason,
Yes.
recently, and I saw your walk in New York, and then I watched your walk and you described what was going on. I afterwards read on Twitter about another citizen media called Granskning Sverige. And Granskning Sverige is a small, driven by just private citizens media that is only consists only of audios and interviews with people. And they're calling politicians and public servants, and they're asking questions. And they're always asking questions. They're not abusive and they're not threatening. At least I am not aware of this. There is only one case, and it was not their journalist who did that. Anyway, they are now sued, kind of by the biggest media in Sweden, called Bonnier Group. And Bonnier Group own newspapers, magazines, TV channels. They're the people that are publishing, for instance, the Nobel Prize winners. So what they did is they contacted YouTube and told YouTube that Granskning Sverige is using pictures of their publications, and they have copyrights for their publications, and so Granskning Sverige cannot even quote. They cannot even quote and show Bonnier Media publications.
That's interesting. That's a very similar tactic to what the Austrian law firm used against us. They just said, this is our copyright. You can't show it or talk about it. That's not valid in the United States.
No, not in the United States. And I don't think they can make a case against Granskning Sverige either, because if they're critical to something, if they're criticizing something, they have to show what it is. They can't just talk about it, and they can't show the article, for instance. So I don't think they have much chance there. The interesting part is that this is a typical strategy for the leftists who are trying to dox people, because the people behind Granskning Sverige are anonymous, except one, as far as I understand. And they want to stay anonymous, and in a sense, they should stay anonymous, because you see what happens with me, for instance. If they are pushed to defend their YouTube channel, they will be doxxed. So now they have to. They thought probably they would dox them that way, or kind of either dox them or remove them.
And just very quickly, Bilyana, because I know we use the word all the time, but I'm frequently surprised that many people still don't know what doxing is. It's, of course, revealing the personal information, the address, the phone number, the email address. My ex-wife was just doxed for no good reason at all, and it can be very intrusive to someone who maybe has children and doesn't have anything to do with what the doxing is all about.
If they try to find out who is the founder, the person behind this Granskning Sverige, I think they have been trying to get to this person for a long time, because he has been working on this channel for a long time, but hasn't been discovered. They don't know who he is, and I think they're trying to do that. But what happened is the opposite. Actually, who was doxxed was the person who ordered the cancellation of their YouTube videos. And it appeared that it's a very established law firm in Sweden. So actually, those that were exposed were those that ordered the cancellation of the channel of the Granskningssverige shows.
Huh.
Or
This
YouTube
sort of
channel.
digital poetic justice.
And it actually became a digital poetic justice, and so that's why I showed you on the other slide that Granskningssverige has posted that and said we are going to, we know who you are, we know who the people behind this is. It's not, you see there in the red with the red, it says that it is a company, the law firm, Danovsky, and the newspapers, Dagens Nyheter and Expressen. Those newspapers are notorious of doxing, exposing, persecuting people for a long time. I didn't live here when they did that, but apparently they have an enormous history, and a lot of people just are disgusted by them. But now they are doxxed, so as those that ordered the cancellation of the knocking off of the YouTube channels. So we'll see what will happen. Hopefully, they will be able to continue. They're described as racist, and I don't understand why. Because they are mainly asking questions. They call around different public servants and they ask questions. They discuss things. They want to talk. So what's wrong with that? Whatever views you have, it's good to talk. And if you have a good point, everybody should be happy with that.
I would say they call them racist because it's one of those things that once you call someone that, almost everyone can despise somebody for being racist. So if you're saying someone's racist, they're sort of immediately hated by many.
Exactly. They label people, and the moment they label you, this is how defamation works, right? This is how fake news work as well. You send out one fake news, and then you have to correct it if it's wrong. But nobody reads the correction, or very few people actually see the correction. You're already primed with the fake news, and that's how labeling functions. So anyway, we see the same process, big media attacking very small media, and I would say this is sort of a track towards fascism, because they should instead support small media, communicate with small media, and stimulate discourse. So my question was, are we really on fast track to fascism? Because now the European Union and the Council of Europe have called for reporters on hate crime. And I gave you a link there. Anybody can click on that link, and you can read what the policy recommendations to combat cyber hate are. And they come from the European Union. One of the instructions there is that it's good to have this kind of groups. They consider them grassroots, the citizen-driven groups that are supposed to go through social media and track what people are saying and report it and prosecute it.
Jesus.
So now that the woman who, for instance, you started with, who is facing 2 years prison in case this case goes further, she was probably found that way. There are a number of organizations now that are competing to get government funding to do exactly that. So it's not, before it was this group called Göra Här, which was swarm attacking people on Facebook, accounts and media on Facebook, they attacked Granskning Sverige a lot, and Granskning Sverige had to start 11 new accounts. So they knocked them off once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Still, Granskning Sverige continues to live. But now what we see here is that they're actually prosecuting people. So if someone has said something angry about the immigration, or it's supposed to be for anything, but of what I've read, the only prosecutions we see are against basically Swedish citizens that are upset with the violence and the immigration. And those people are having severe trouble. In that sense, the government, European Union, the Council of Europe. I have to say, the Council of Europe. That's why I gave you a link under the first link. There is another link. The Council of Europe is not a European Union institution. It's a separate institution. But they have made this mixture of the names, and you think that the Council of Europe actually is part of the European Union, that it's a governing body of the European Union, but it's not. It's a completely different organization. And yet this organization is directing the behavior of the Swedish government, and they're following it and starting particular funds to fund the persecution and prosecution of hate speech.
You know, Bilyana, for the benefit of our audience, I just wanted to ask, have I prompted you in any way, or did I even see this presentation before you sent it to me this morning?
No, you have
It's
never seen
amazing.
it.
You're talking about exactly the same things that we're experiencing, groups attacking what we choose to speak about, and creating these swarms of fake accounts. It's really quite interesting.
Yes, it is incredible, and you actually got my slides quite late today. So yeah, the same process is going on, and I think that's one topic we could discuss with your audience, how they think, where does this come from? Why is this an international, transnational phenomenon? Now I'll show you statistics I found in a newspaper just recently, a few days ago, how many hate speech indictments there are in Sweden. And what you can see is that from 2013 to 2014, you have reported hate speech 1,079. And 2016, 2016, 994, and in 2017, 2,140 indictments for hate speech, like similar, like the meme, the joke that you discussed it for when we started. So this means that they are, if they have indicted 2,000. It means that this net spying organizations are actually reporting probably twice as much or 3 times as much.
Well, it also explains, Bilyana, does it not, why there are so few Swedish comedians?
Yes, and yes, that's true. That's true. There are some, and they are really funny, but I don't think they're funny. They will continue to be that funny anymore. True. So now what I see here is that this is a strategy right as we are going into the election time, that this is a strategy to intimidate the voters. The voters don't dare to communicate. They don't dare to say what they think. They don't dare to express their emotions. They don't dare to joke. You know, everything is controlled, and particularly communication. And that's interesting for me. If you are actually prosecuting people for a joke or a comment or being upset for being hit on the street, or their child or grandchild being raped, if you prosecute them for that, then that is an enormous pressure on the population.
Bilyana, you've told us many times how you grew up under communism in Bulgaria, and obviously that was a tightly controlled system. How do you feel about Sweden today versus Bulgaria when you were growing up?
Well, it's worse because at that time we could joke, but of course the difference is that you have social media and probably a lot of old people. There are a lot of old ladies that were, older ladies that were indicted for hate speech, and I don't think that they realize how the social media work. So they probably think they're talking to a friend, you know, they're talking to their group of friends, but they're actually publishing something publicly, and they're not even aware that they've done this, and all of a sudden they're in court and they're criminalized for it. I can imagine that something like that is going on. One has to like study each case and see what happens, but it is a fact that it's elderly people using the media that are getting into this. In relation to the communism, that's why I said we are going into a fast track to fascism. For me, communism and fascism are basically the same thing with different names. We are getting there. These are the first steps. Changing the constitution, limiting access to public information, controlling the journalists, taking down small citizen-driven media by huge corporations, then indicting and spying on people and indicting them and prosecuting them for what they say before election, not allowing a dialogue, not informing that there are changes coming in the constitution, not allowing a big, wide debate about that. All that is, for me, fast-tracked to fascism or the socialistic controlled societies I came from, so-called. They at that time, Sweden called Bulgaria totalitarian. Now I would say things are going in the opposite direction. I mean, the thing is, it is also creating a lot of. It's very divisive policy. It divides people. So Swedes are spying on Swedes. Swedes are reporting on Swedes. You see, this reporting of people, it immediately brings to mind fascism for me. Labeling people, and I don't see how Sweden naturally would do that. Maybe there isn't a historical background in Sweden to do things like that during, for instance, the highly religious times where people are supposed to be religious, and to the heavy Christian religion times when they were supposed to be in their communities only. So that's what we see. Today there was an article in, it's not today, but I saw it today in the New York Times, very good article about the continuous violence in Sweden. And we have still grenades. There are rapes as well. The year started with 5 gang rapes, which makes me really sad, because I really make an effort to of my private time to inform about people that they should be ready to protect themselves somehow. You know, like not take risks, even if it means that we are limiting our freedom. At least we're saving our lives. But it's still happening, and hopefully it will happen less as people are more careful. But there is a lot of violence also against the police itself. You saw that article, and the article is giving the feeling of a lot of people. It's a feeling of sadness. Now I wanted to show you something that I'm personally very interested in. As you know, I'm a linguist and I study interaction. The field is called pragmatics. I do extremely microscopic analysis of verbal and non-verbal behaviors. But in this case, it's a very simple thing I wanted to show you. Remember this story that I was removed from university from one day to the other, and I didn't understand why. What have I done? I got a letter, a sudden letter that I'm removed for. We'll see that in a minute. And then a lot of people that I didn't even expect that people would supported me and kind of called the university, and I don't even know who these people are, and very grateful to them for supporting me, and I understood I'm not alone. But then there was an attachment in the mail that I got with removal, which referred to one of my tweets. And I tweeted about Yoahar, and I asked if one of the leaders of Yoahar is working at the university, because this link said, this tweet said that this person works at the university, and at the same time she is active within this Yoahar organization for swarm attacking people on social media. They are basically doing political persecution. They're not. It's not about hate speech anymore. They're really just against certain views, and that's all it is about. But when I post, I just asked the question. I said, "This is." I always translate the Swedish things to the Swedish tweets to English. And so I translated what this said, and it said, well, this is the leader of this organization. For me, they're hateful organizations, and she's censoring the media and censoring at that time other small media online, really destroying them, like they have to disappear. And I asked, does she really teach at the Stockholm University, as the tweet claimed? Afterwards, this person came out in the main media, Dagens Nyheter again, Bonnier again, and she said, you can go a little bit further down, I will show you which one it is. Not this one. Next. Wait, up, one up. Oh, one more. Yes, here. So she went. I'm giving you just a quote from the newspaper, where she goes in the newspaper and says that I have been. I'm translating it from as she has formulated, that I have been involved with censorship of people at the university is absurd, says Kaiser Klein. People make it sound as if I destroyed this person's life. She means me. These are completely groundless accusations by conspiratory sites. It feels threatening, she says. So she says she has nothing to do with the fact that I was removed from the university from one day to the other. Can you go up again to the first anatomy of persecution? Here. One more up. Yeah. Okay. So because Sweden has, and you will profit from it as well, probably, has a law which gives you the right to get access to communication, written communication on paper or on electronic, within public or agencies, government agencies, or state institutions. And Stockholm University is a state institution governed by that law. What are you showing now?
It went.
Yeah, I'm just trying to zoom in. I'm trying to present your graphic in a way that people will be able to see it a bit more clearly. Please continue.
Anyway, what I'm showing to you here is that I actually asked the university to send me all the communication between the head of the department that sent me the email, which tells me that I'm removed for discussing political topics on Twitter. I asked to get his communication for a span of time in which my name is mentioned, either Bilyana or Martinovsky. And and I said I got 100 pages,
Really?
which I actually had to pay a little bit for to get also, where I can read the interaction between this woman, Kaiser Klein, this representative, the Royal organization, leader of that organization, one of them, who claimed in the newspaper, which I read in October 2017, she said that she has nothing to do with this. That this is conspiracy theories and conspiracy sites that are talking about it, and she hasn't done anything against me, and she hasn't ruined anything in my life. She's not involved in this. This is nonsense, and she's threatened by the accusation. So now what we see is her mail. So I posted my tweet with the question. I asked, does this person who shuts down media actually teaches media at university? That was my question. I was really surprised. And on 2 days later, 10 o'clock in the morning, she's writing a letter to my to the head of my previous affiliated department, a department I've been teaching and working with, colleagues I had respect to, and they had respect to me. That email basically says, does a person called Bilyana Martinovsky still work with you? She practices right extremism, defamation, and hate speech via Twitter. The other day, she spread lies about me. So, number one, the first thing that we find out is that this person lied in the major media in Sweden. She just directly lied. She told them she's not involved with it, and she even said she feels threatened by people accusing her of it. But she herself contacted them.
We're seeing the same exact behavior here. People blatantly lying, and as long as they lie first, people are like, oh, well, if you accuse this person of lying, maybe you're lying.
Well,
Yeah.
Bilyana, do you have possibly a cause of action against this person?
I'm gathering my case, Charles, and as you know, I am a person that prepares prepares a lot. So I am preparing everything. So we can continue going further in this. I want to show you how they do it.
Good.
I'm sure I'm not the only person that has happened to, but I am the person who can show you how they do it. So you can go to the next slide. We have their conversation. This is what it is about. This is why I was removed from university. This is why this is the reason why she calls me a right extremist. And she says that I lie. So I am just, this is my tweet. I ask, does this person who works in an organization that is censoring to death other accounts, other people's views, other small media, does she really work at the University of Stockholm teaching media? That's because the site said that she was actually teaching there at a certain point, but I couldn't believe it, so I asked.
She's probably the dean of journalism.
So you can go to the next slide, the next one. Okay. Then he responds, I removed that because it's not so informative. He responds to her that I have worked there for a while, and but I haven't been there for a while, but yeah, we know each other. Are you sure that you're talking about Bilyana? And then she says, and then she asks, this same woman asks, do you know where Bilyana is now? It is hard for me to understand how you can be related to her, legitimize her. P.S. Others at Stockholm University have been informed about this, security department, press department, etc. She says, etc. So now we are learning that she wants to know where I am physically. I mean, talking about threatening, she wants to know physically where I am. She's persecuting me. And
this is another tactic I've seen, Bilyana, where, you know, we were trying to do some reporting in the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, and they wouldn't allow me in, and one of the police officers actually said he felt intimidated by me, despite the fact that I was holding a cell phone and he had a gun and 2 other armed police officers with him. I feel that that kind of language is priming the pump for them to say, oh, you're intimidating me, you're threatening me.
It's because the word is mightier than the sword.
Yeah, they get the idea out there.
What she's doing is she's defaming me. This is a very obvious case of defamation. The law of
Yes.
defamation says you are not allowed to tell the boss or the colleagues of a person that someone is reported for a major criminal crime. And hate speech is a big crime right now, right? She says that this question I've put is expression of hate speech, which has zero chance. I mean, you cannot get this to hate speech against an ethnicity or a group. She's defaming me. She's actually calling my boss and telling him, "How could you be associated with her?" And that's basically humiliation, diminishing, defamation, very clearly. So then his response to that, after she says that to him, he immediately, within hours, writes this letter to me. Where he said, in which he doesn't tell me what happened. He just writes to me this letter, and this letter says, "You were discussing. So I have seen that you seem to be active in Twitter, discussing, among other things, immigration, nationalism, and lots of other sensitive political issues. So I'm not allowed to do that." This is complete nonsense also, because he has not really read and is not informed of what I'm discussing. He's just threatened by this person. So you can go to the next slide.
Wow. Who is this person, Bilyana? Who is Uno?
Uno is the head of the department where I worked for a number of years, and then I was affiliated scholar for a number of years. I wasn't very active because, as I told you, I am myself a victim of the crime here. There was a guy immigrant from Belgium, who damaged my spine in an absolutely sadistic attack on my spine. Hours after I got spinal puncture, lumbar puncture, as it is called. I had an operation, lumbar puncture, and after that, hours after that, this person all of a sudden came from somewhere and started pushing my back to the extent, to the point in which I fainted, because it was extraordinarily painful. I cannot describe the pain you have when you're doing this lumbar puncture, but to be pushed and to be violated in this state is an absolute disgusting crime. I got no justice whatsoever, and that's why I will get very interested how the justice system in Sweden works, given that I've written my thesis on forensic linguistics. So anyway, I'm giving the background why I wasn't very active for some years. Now I'm back, I'm alive, I'm going for it, and I'm trying to get back to my life. Anyway, the next, so I want to show you the anatomy. She sends him a letter which she says, "Who is this? Where this person is employed? Is it employed with you? She's doing hate speech, and she's lying about me." Then within hours, he immediately removes me and everything associated with me with this department. But he doesn't tell her. He doesn't give her information of what he did. So she sends him another message where she says, "Oh no, I need to know." This is the next day. What is it? 7 o'clock in the morning or something. I need to know what happened with Bilyana's case. I can only see what she writes on Twitter, and since sorry, that's a mistake. And since she lies a lot, I can't go from her story. Please tell me what happened and how your communication looks like. Share with me emails. Since this is of importance for my personal security and the case has been reported to the police, I would like you to inform me ASAP. So this is an absolute crazy situation, because she's claiming here that her personal security is in danger I have never seen this person. I don't care about it. I asked a question about a person participating in an organization. And then she says that she has been to the police and reported me to the police. So I went to the police and I asked, am I reported for something? Am I reported for something? They said, well, we can't really give you, but we can give you this information if you give us your ID. So they went in and checked. I am not reported. So now she's using the police. She's lying. She refers to the police and she says that she's reported me to the police, but she's lying to.
Well, that's actual intimidation.
There is only one explanation. It's because she wants to intimidate him. And she, in the same mail, she says that I am lying. So the anatomy of this persecution is incredible, because they lie and they accuse a completely innocent person for lying.
Well, this is the insidious nature of liars, is that they come out with a lie, and if you're an honest person, you're kind of surprised by it. This is the same exact thing happening to me right now, these smear campaigns.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a smear campaign. It is a smear campaign, what they did, because they went to the media and talked everywhere, and it was like crazy, So now the next step, he continues to not answer to her. He's busy, and she says, the department, so I said the department, Uno Forsch from the department, he says, have in mind that all communication via Stockholm University is public. So he warns her that he cannot share with her information with me because it's already shared, it's public. I can get this information. So he warns her that whatever she says, I can actually read afterwards. And the YHR, this organization, this leader or administrator of this organization continues and says, promise that my name is not mentioned. So she's very clearly asking him to cover her up. And then he promises and says, no, your name has not been mentioned at all. So what I'm showing you here is how the persecution functions. And then this article that appeared they together, the head of the department, the head of this YHR organization, she's in the leadership of the organization, go to the main Bonnier media and smear campaign me by describing me as a right extremist. And who knows what right extremist means? I mean, if they mean fascist or Nazist, this is left extremism. It's not right, if anything. And they say that and she says that she's not involved in this at all.
So. I'm confused here. I mean, you lost your job, you lost your income, you suffered damages. This is just on the surface, it seems to be a blatant case of defamation. I mean, if you lived in the United States, you would have lawyers falling all over themselves trying to represent you in this case. I mean, you've been harmed here in a major way. In the prime of your career, somebody who's been subject to physical abuse and damage, recuperating from that, is trying to make a go of getting her life back, and just because you make fair observations in a public forum, it rhymes with which, is coming out of nowhere making false accusations, and you're still without work. This is outrageous behavior.
The problem is when it comes to civil prosecution, the people doing this know that there's a major barrier. You need a lot of money to pay a lawyer to pursue this person, and in the end, what happens? The statements are still out there. You don't necessarily collect any money.
Well, she could get money. I don't know Swedish law, but I mean, and I don't know what you were entitled to as a.
You're not a Swedish lawyer?
I'm neither Swedish nor a lawyer, and I'm also not a liar. But just looking at this fact base, you've been harmed enormously, both financially, emotionally, personally. This is outrageous. Yes. And this person cannot. Who is this idiot Kaja Klein, or however you pronounce it? Who is this person?
She's a. Let's go further in the. Okay. I ask myself the same question. So you go down. She's working for YHR, and They are now getting funding from the state. So I think so I read about her. And look what she wrote in the States. She lived in the States for a while. And she started an organization called Democracy Aid. And you can read there the text, the description of what they try to do. They try to collect money from non-American citizens.
In other words, to meddle in the 2004 election, to collude with John Kerry.
Yeah. They collected money from non-American citizens in order to influence the Move On organization. And stop Bush. They were against Bush, and they thought that the U.S. is not enough democratic, so they have to assist it. And she is as a Swedish citizen there. She collected this money, and as far as I understand, they were told by Move On org themselves that this is illegal, and they cannot do that. They cannot receive money from non-Americans for American election.
So she's to the left. She's to the left of George Soros.
Well, and the funny thing is, MoveOn.org told her to move on.
Yeah, so Move On told her to move on. I'm not sure if she's allowed to go back, because in a sense, if they really collected this money and they really wanted to, they really tried to meddle, I'm sure that that became one or another way a problem, because it's basically meddling. That's what Mueller is doing for a year now, investigating the meddling in the election. And these people are not just making some advertisements on Facebook. These people were collecting money,
Right, and it's interesting, the second paragraph you've underlined here. Why shouldn't we as world citizens have the right to give our money to a good cause? There is no such thing as a world citizen.
It's funny. Well, there was just a comment right here going by on YouTube from Thomas saying that Sweden is the test country for the New World Order.
It's going real well. It's going real well.
For the New World Order.
Yeah, exactly. For the globalists.
Yeah, crushing the Swedes under a boot.
Yeah, das Boot.
Isn't it interesting that so I was subject to this disgraceful violence. Then I went to look for to help from the police. When I called the police, the Swedish policeman stood in front of me and said, "Shut up and listen to what I'm saying." And he refused to take my reports about the violence I wanted to report. And from that moment on, I became very interested in the judicial system in Sweden. So I reported that to the ombudsman, judicial ombudsman, and I said, I have a duty to report to you what happened to me. This is just one of the things that happened. There's a number of violations everywhere, wherever you look. And they responded to me that this is none of their business. Although all the organizations that I asked for women's rights and women's help, and they told me, you write this letter to the inform what happened to the judicial ombudsman. And their response was that this is none of their business. So what I'm studying and what I was interested, therefore I was interested in gang rape and so on. I'm studying this entire system. I'm studying what happens to the system so that we can let down the victims on the ground and even shout to them to shut up when they try to report a crime. This is where we are in Sweden. That's the situation.
So the working title for your book can be "What Happened in Sweden."
Yes, could be. I have another title actually, but as you can see, I'm going to things really from afar. But it's interesting where this leads me. So I start checking about the Swedish law and crime and what happens with other women. I want to help them. If it happens to me, then it means to happens to other women. I understand how difficult it is for them. And then this site, Gang Rape Sweden, is attacked by an organization called Your Head, and then I tweet about Your Head and I ask about them. Who are those? And they contact my boss and my colleague and defame me and call me extremists. threatening and all that, lying about defaming me. And then I check who they are and who are they. Well, this is a person who has been publishing with Open Democracy. Well, Open Democracy, that's Soros.
Ah, Soros.
Right?
Now there's a fine specimen.
Right. So after all this ordeal, in the end, we end up with what? We end up with a Soros publication. So
How
when
is George Soros not in prison somewhere?
He should be in prison. Well, the good news about George Soros is he's put a lot of his known money into a foundation that I think is guilty of gross illegal activity and should be the subject of multiple criminal prosecutions in the United States. And I don't know about the foreign foundations, but certainly the American Foundation should be shut down.
Well, I would certainly be willing to create Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with Charles to specifically pursue. He's not a Nazi, but he did work for him.
Yeah, he's a despicable human being.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the way he's describing it is that he was somehow, like a Stockholm syndrome. He had to work for them, so he was in the face of evil. He was forced to help them as they are robbing other people.
Yeah, but the fact that he enjoyed it was just a bonus.
Right.
But whatever it is, we are ending up with Soros here. And when I said that in Twitter, the husband of this leader of that organization wrote an extremely angry and defamating post in Facebook against me and called me anti-Semite, where the only thing I've done is to just see who is the person who is defaming me. Who is the person who is destroying my career, who is career assassinating me in the major newspapers in town after working for 20 years, constantly dedicated scholar I am.
And this was a daughter-in-law of George Soros?
No.
And we end up with a publication in Soros. And what do we read there? We read a person who is saying that the Swedes are parochial because they voted against the euro in 2003. What is parochial about voting to protect your own currency?
Well, you don't want to be a global citizen, a world citizen. You're just not smart enough to understand how much better that is, right?
So you see the picture I'm showing you. I'm showing you that the person who now in 2017 is persecuting people who are decrying crime and silencing down citizen media, silencing accounts and people, and now funded by government, is a person who actually was active in open democracy and open society, and tried to meddle in the American election in 2004.
Amazing.
This is how I get there. It's like, think about it. I have a dog beat me on the head. I got a tick on the head. Because of that, I got symptoms of meningitis. Because of this meningitis, I went to the hospital. I got a spinal puncture. Because of that, I was attacked by a person who actually damaged me so much I couldn't walk for a year. Because of that, I had to report to the police. Because of that, the police said they didn't care about my report. I had to insist. And after that, I get no justice, so I get interested in the justice. I ask questions. And I asked a question about this persecuting organization, and they defame me and lie about me, and then I end up with Soros. So now I went further, and I see that in Soros Foundation, Open Society Foundation, has actually directly given money to a Swedish organization called Expo. Now, the foundation Expo is a chapter on its own. But these people themselves and their participants are calling themselves Stasi, the Swedish Stasi.
Jesus.
They're bragging
They
about that.
openly spy on people, docs, spy, check on your accounts and so on. What are these people doing now? The head of not the head, but kind of one of the main faces in this organization now. It's called Robert Ashbery. Robert Ashbery is an older journalist. It's an older man, but still functioning. And what did he do recently? He started a smear campaign against the main lawyer who actually represented me in my case also for violence. Because she, if you remember the case when we talked about the woman who was raped by 20 men, and then they found evidence for 8, I think, and they released everybody. Nobody has been arrested anymore. I mean, nobody has been indicted. And her representative, this victim's representative in court was Elizabeth Massey Fritz. Elizabeth Massey Fritz is a lawyer that takes mainly violence against women cases and rape cases, gang rape cases, and so on. And that woman is attacked by the Expo representative. Smearing campaign in their newspapers, where they go through her receipts and they interview anonymous people that talk against her. They try to find something to get her, because she most outspokenly came out after this case, where the woman was raped by so many men and in such a sadistic manner. She went out in the media and said, this is the worst thing I've seen. The rapes are getting harder and harder and more, and she associated it with the immigration. And from that moment on, now she is a subject of smearing campaign.
See, this also fits a pattern that we're seeing. No matter how altruistic the actions of the targeted individual might be, exposing obvious corruption, exposing, abuses of human rights, if it's opposed to the overall view, that person gets attacked viciously.
Exactly. It's very simple. Everybody who has touched on the issue of gang rapes in Sweden has been in one way or another subject to smear campaign. Another person like that, and these are the people who are doing it. So, and these people have actually gotten directly money from Open Society, from Soros. You can go to the next slide, and we see the next one. He has also donated. What are they donating money for? To train the activists, leftist activists, to be trained how to do all this stuff. Here we see that they donated to an organization called Daniel Sachs Foundation. And Daniel Sachs Foundation is something that existed then. I don't think it exists now, so 2014. But who knows, maybe it does. But this person, Daniel Sachs, is somehow related to the main theater in Stockholm, Dramaten. Now they also got for the same purpose to probably train leftists and.
Well, Bilyana, let me just interrupt you for a second here.
It's nationalism in any case.
If you look at the top of this page, it says List of European Elections 2014 Projects. You're not allowed to do this in a foundation.
He's doing it. That's why I'm showing it to you.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you. That's why I wanted to ask you. How is this possible?
Well, it's not. It's possible because he's George Soros. He's so big and so rich that people don't want to take him on. But this is an excellent topic. An open letter from you to a list of questions that Donald Trump should ask your prime minister on the 6th, which I think is Tuesday. We ought to get such a thing published, which I think I could do for you offline. We'll talk by email. But I mean, this is outrageous. Here's Donald Trump is under a special prosecutor that's cost tens of millions of dollars over unfounded allegations that he engaged in collusion with Russia. Meanwhile, George Soros has just given tens of billions of dollars to his foundations. And here's an example, chapter and verse, of how he's using that money, bragging about it, on election campaign after election campaign after election campaign after election campaign around the world. This is not allowed in a 501c3 charity, which I think this is what...
Yes, it is.
You're not allowed to do this. Just not allowed to do
Is it a U.S. 501c3?
Well, what he does, they're very clever. What they do is they have a series of these open society foundations all over the place. They have them in the United States. They have them in many countries around the world. If it's to be a political operation that you're meddling in an election in Sweden, Swedish law probably is similar to American law in that in American law, you cannot, as a foreigner, start meddling in our elections. You can't, if you're going to engage in significant activities inside the U.S., we have something called the Foreign Agents Registration Act. You've got to register. As a guest, there's similar laws around the world. And this seems to be, this Open Society Foundation is just unmitigated BS. You know, they're arguing that there's a globalist world, nationalist laws don't matter anymore. We're bringing along an open global society, so we'll do what we want. We're George Soros.
But you can't meddle in an election, even if your name is Putin.
Even if it's Putin. So maybe we should move along then.
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to show you something else. This was just apparently I missed. I didn't know about any of this, you know, before 1 year ago. But apparently, Expo has been getting money. This same organization, Expo, that is sort of the establishment, socialistic establishment's front site in Sweden. They have gotten money from the postcode lottery as well.
Right. So the postcode lottery and Nova Media fund principally left-leaning and it would appear activist political organizations. And remember, the postcode lottery is not a charity; it's a business. You know.
No. They have a foundation.
Well, I understand, but they have a foundation, but they're also, the foundation has links to the business.
The foundation is not a bit. This is something. This is something I'm researching right now. I'm going through their paperwork that is available in Sweden. I did send you some, and it's very shady business. I don't understand. It doesn't say that they have paid any. They have paid any donations to anybody. So I wonder where are this money and how are this money getting to the donors at all? And I'm very interested in this process. How did they do it?
Good. We'll get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, we you know, that it's really like following a rabbit hole. You can go to the next slide. Again, now we are talking about postcode lottery. And the postcode lottery says, as you said earlier, they have been donating much earlier. But I found online information about only 2013. So from 2012 to 2014, they have they said they have given money to a Telberg Foundation. And from 2013 to 2017, they say that they have given 64 million crowns to the Clinton Foundation. Now,
what does that say underneath it?
What?
Something 2007 to 2013, Clinton Foundation, 58.95 MSEC. Can you read? I don't know if you could read it. It's on your slide.
Wait, I have to go there because something else appears, and I will go there.
The very last two lines, Bilyana.
Yes. Målen året 2007-2013 tog Clean Clinton Foundation emot 58,95. They have. It says that between 2000. Oh, that's right. You're right. Between 2007 and 2013, Clinton Foundation has taken from the postcode lottery 58 million, about 58.95 million Swedish crowns in support of their projects.
Okay, so that's a total of 125 million Swedish crowns. So what would that be in US dollars approximately. Just use an average number.
It's really swinging a lot.
I know, but
But
8?
120, the 12, 120 million, 12 million, no?
Is it 10 crowns to the dollar?
I would count it with 10, but it changes all the time, so I don't know exactly what it is now.
1 Swedish crown is worth 0.12 US dollars.
Yeah, 8 to the dollar.
Now.
Yeah, yeah, it's gone all over the place. Okay,
Yeah.
let's keep going. That's
So
very
anyway,
useful.
We are seeing that. This socialist extreme leftist organization is getting money from the postcode lottery and is from Soros, and the postcode lottery is also giving money to Clinton Foundation. Then you go to the next slide, and who was responsible? No, stay there. Yeah, so I checked 2013. Who was responsible? Who was working in the postcode lottery in 2013? Well, Margot Wallström is hired by the postcode lottery exactly in 2013, and she's supposed to work with charity projects. So exactly in 2013, when the foundation is receiving, I wonder what part of the foundation they were really giving money to. That's not very clear. Even the Margot Wallström, who is the main supporter of Clinton here in Sweden. I mean, she has probably worked with her in the United Nations, and she became deputy prime minister here and minister of foreign affairs in 2014, together with a woman from SIDA who gave money. SIDA gave money to the Clinton Foundation. Postcode Lottery gave money to the Clinton Foundation. Margot Wallström works for the Postcode Lottery. Lövin works for SIDA. And these women both together become ministers in the Swedish government, and they all wholeheartedly support Clinton's end globalization project.
So let me try to bring this home a little bit. Hillary Clinton leaves the State Department on February 1st, 2013. And thereafter, what happens is she inserts herself into the Clinton Foundation. They rev up efforts to raise money for the Clinton Foundation and for the endowment in a secret office we visited at 77 Water Street that's not declared. We need to understand and see all cables involving this lady and the Clinton Foundation, right in her official capacity, Margaret Wallström and the Clinton Foundation, and the other lady and the Clinton Foundation, Hillary Clinton, in this time frame. Because I think here we have, you know, in the case of Donald Trump, his son and son-in-law take a meeting with a Russian lawyer at Trump Tower, 15-minute meeting that has now turned into the Mueller investigation, where, you know, they're chasing all over the place. Hillary Clinton is spending $12 million to create a fake dossier of Russian gibberish. You know, maybe she got the $12 million from the Swedes.
It was British gibberish.
British gibberish and also Russian nonsense and British gibberish, all in one big
rubbish
Swedish fish soup.
Right.
But seriously, this is a trail. This is what the Clintons do. They're masters at it. They accuse you of the very same behavior that they themselves are carrying out. And you are putting together some great links here, Bilyana, that we've got to trace out and, you know, write up.
And this is what I wanted to ask. I'm detecting by a very subtle level of excitement that some of this is new information for you.
It is. This is new. I didn't know this.
Please carry on, Bilyana.
Yeah. So well, we kind of have to finish. I'm a person who is not very used to sitting, so I'm getting really.
All right.
Next time I'm going to stand and talk.
All right. Well, we'll keep flying along.
The next thing I wanted to show here is for you particularly and for your viewers that when you look at Nova Media, the postcode lottery that is donating without the actual users knowing that they're donating to the Clinton Foundation, that organization, if you read there, if you see to the green text, Nova Media Svenska Postkodlotteriet AB, That is a company.
Right.
And then you have also Kulturstiftelsen, and that is because Stiftelse means basically foundation, so cultural foundation. And then idrott means sports, so they have a foundation for sports. And then they have a separate thing called Svenska Postkodlotteriet. So you have 4 entities. The first entity, Nova Media, this is the only one that is listed as a corporation, as a business, and it is paying a particular F-stat here. The others are not registered because they are supposed to be foundations, and they are supposed to get no income from it. But when I looked at, you can for free get all their documentation. You can see that most of the money are actually going to pay salaries, enormous, big salaries for a lot of people.
So
more than 160 people work here.
That's the Clinton model.
That's the Clinton model, and it looks like they are in different places, but it's actually, when you look at the map, it looks like they are located together. So it really looks shady. It looks strange. What are these organizations, and how are they related to each other, and how are the employees there related to the business and to the foundation? I did not see any information of how the money are actually moving out to the international foundations, such as the Clinton Foundation or other whatever other activities they are supporting. I can't see it. And the only way to do it is to write and ask about it. To either call the tax agencies or just ask them directly to give that, if they would give that information. Now
That's the Colonel's secret recipe.
Now, these guys are private organizations, so I don't know, when it comes to SIDA, they are not a private organization, they are a state organization, so they are supposed to give out information about the type of communication they had with whoever they had it when they were donating this money to the CHI and Clinton Foundation that way. So that you can get, but from these organizations, these are private businesses and foundations. I don't know if one can get to their communication and to find out how they instituted the entire business. At that time, Margot Wallström, who first in 2013, she was a UN representative for the Council for Violence Against Women. And then in 2012, actually, 2013, she is not in the United Nations, as I understand, and she gets a job to work with the postcode lottery, right, probably with Clinton Foundation funds. And then 2014, she becomes prime minister, no, not prime minister, but deputy prime minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs in Sweden. And since then, she's quite known because she supports very actively Palestine.
Oh, she's the controversial one. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, she's part of this controversy, if we would call it that way, but it's definitely not diplomacy. So this is the person we are talking about, and now if she was involved in the postcode lottery and was in contact with the Clinton Foundation in this process and how they were planning and what they were planning, we cannot get to their communication because at that time she was employed by a private business, Nova Media. I don't know if we can. I don't think that it's the same law that applies to private businesses.
Well, I think that if she was the foreign minister, and if sorry,
she becomes Minister of Foreign Affairs in 2014.
That's perfect. So we need to get the date that she started, and then all communications between her in her capacity as Foreign Minister of Sweden, and any project having to do with CHI, any Clinton Foundation project, which there are going to be quite a few, and those emails, one of the reasons that we have missing emails and we have the secret server and secret office of the Hillary Clinton operation in Chappaqua and down in Washington, D.C. is precisely because the Clintons don't want us to see these communications. So maybe we can get them out of Sweden.
Yes, if anything official, any official communication, communication in emails or in paper, they're supposed to actually present. This is how I got to to the anatomy of the persecution. The people who were trying to hide the fact that they have defamed me to my boss. That is how I found out, and that is how I'm going to find out more, because now I'm going to contact every department they contacted and ask for what did they say. So the more they defame me, the more obvious it becomes what they're doing, and the stronger my case becomes.
Good. So are there more slides, Bilyana?
Yes, this is it. This is the last one. I was just showing just the trip, so to say, from the last one is about SIDA now. So this is a state organization that was at that time, at certain point, Levine starts to be responsible for it, and you can check her CV if you want, Jason.
Yeah.
Because. No, just stay where you are. I can send you the CV. But we know who we are talking about.
Yeah, I mean this right here is a prime target list for litigation. I mean, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has given, I think the number is over $100 million. We don't know how much Global Affairs Canada has given. They're refusing to cooperate so far, but Justin Trudeau is not doing so well. And so, who knows, perhaps we're going to have some movement favorably there.
He's very popular in India.
He's not even popular in India. But the IKEA Foundation, we've talked briefly about suspicions I have there. Norway has given over $70 million US. Swedish, we know of 31 million so far. There's probably more than that. The Australian government's 100 million. This Elma Foundation is a South African operation that is, South Africa is in turmoil. We don't really know what's happening with that. The UK has not been forthcoming, and we're going to land on them like a ton of bricks soon. And Unitate, of course, is backed by lots of people, but their real number is they've given $650 million to the Clinton Foundation. $650 million. So how do these people, I mean, not a single person listed there is an idiot, right? I mean, how did this group get together and trip all over themselves to give over $1 billion to a gigantic set of frauds and not figure out that there's a problem? How did that happen?
Yeah, go to the last slides there about SIDA. Yeah, here, you're just putting it up. This is the person we're talking about. So you can scroll down and show. This is the government page. And in her CV, in the government page, she's telling you exactly when she started working in SIDA, when she's responsible for SIDA, when she took one or the other jobs in university, not the university, but the government. So you can read it. And now...
Can we make it something smaller? Because I just want to... Here you have... She was a freelance journalist and author from 2002 to 2009. Then she went to that august institution, the European Parliament, which Nigel Farage thinks is such a great operation. And then in 2014, she becomes Minister for International Development Cooperation. That's SIDA, right?
That's SIDA.
And then in 2016, Minister for International Development Cooperation and Climate, and Deputy Prime Minister. So it's really in this period, 2014 forward, that we would like to get as much information as we can out of the government concerning emails and other written communications having anything to do with any Clinton charity.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the person that I could see after 2014. that CETA was actually donating, competing with Gates Foundation in generosity towards the Clinton Foundation.
Right, and now no disrespect is meant here, because I'm an American who does know that this is one of the most ancient universities on earth, but it's no surprise that she went to the Bologna University.
I don't think she finished I don't think she has a degree. She just studied around, but I don't think she has a degree.
So 6 years at 2 universities and no degree.
She minored in processed meats at the Bologna University.
Yeah, this is not a stellar resume here.
Well, she represents the Green Party, like in France. In France, one of the representatives of the Green Party in the European Union was a person indicted for pedophilia.
Oh, that's not a shock.
Supporter of Macron, old supporter of Macron. He was his main protege.
Bilyana, the YouTube comments are asking us if there is an equivalent to a FOIA request in Sweden, a Freedom of Information.
Yes, that's what it is. That's what I'm talking about. This is the FOIA request. And what I talked about earlier is that now the Swedish government is trying to change the law, in Swedish constitution, the FOIA law, the Freedom of Information Act, by not letting people have, public have access to criminal records. And that is a major limitation of that law.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. This is an enormously helpful presentation, Bilyana. We have just one page left of mine. If this is your last one, or is there another?
Well, no, I wanted to, there's one side that you're showing right now. It says Oxfam and CETA. What I don't understand is how come there is connection between Oxfam and CETA, and Oxfam is already gone, because of all the sexual scandals. I wondered if you know to how Oxfam and CETA were related, and were they informed about the sex scandals with the prostitutes and organized parties there with the donated money, and what chances do Swedish taxpayers have to get back their money or clear themselves out of this association with the despicable behavior of Oxfam personnel?
Yeah, this is this despicable tension that you have, high-minded freelance journalists who can't manage to graduate from college but spend 6 years doing it, ending up as the deputy prime minister of a country, giving away everybody's money. Nobody seems to know where the money's going. No one's checking anything.
No, it's incredible.
And it's just an obvious thing. We're sitting there as small individuals. You start in a very simple place. If you cannot manage your own affairs, you shouldn't be trying to manage a family. And if you can't manage a family, you shouldn't be trying to manage your community, your apartment building, and your community, and your city, and your nation.
And you can't do anything. You could be the prime minister.
Yeah, exactly. Now that show, we've had this, we did do Yes, Mr. President, which is a takeoff on the British sitcom Yes, Prime Minister, which basically goes just down this line, that the Prime Minister of England is depicted as an oaf. And what we have now is this process where we've created this globalist, in quotes, government, with these globalist foundations and these CETAs and postcode lotteries that manage to hook into billions of euros, or even tens or hundreds of billions, and just blow it, and then keep the little people down, the voters down, with very high tax rates. And it should be no surprise that in 2018 people are looking at this and saying, okay, the best you can do, CETA, is to support the Clinton Foundation fraud, and for extra good measure, you're going to support the Oxfam pedophilia prostitution fraud. What else are you doing? Are you also supporting the mafia, or ISIS, or what else are you doing with the taxpayer money?
ISIS is in there.
ISIS, this is crazy land, and I think it is entirely reasonable for people inside Sweden and America to want to make the best of their lives for so long as we're alive, and to have aspirations in some way or another that your country would be great in one sense or another. Not necessarily being the #1 country, but finding out one area where you could be truly great. I mean, I wouldn't recommend the strategy of building out a chain of lutefisk dispensary shops, but I mean, there's probably things to do out of the Swedish platform where you truly can be great as a nation, keep the size of government diminished, rein in these people, and, you know, foster the spirit. Sweden, when I was a kid, when I was going there in my early 20s, Sweden was a place that was extra open and liberal and embraced all kinds of free thinking. That's a great approach to embrace that. Through free inquiry, we're going to discover truth. But to subject the small country of Sweden to totalitarianism, to bring in people who have no connection to the country, let them rape and pillage, and have your politicians steal from you blindly. I mean, Bilyana, you're to be congratulated for what you're doing and supported for what you're doing, not, you know, kicked out of your job. You deserve recompense. You deserve global support. You deserve exposure for this, and we hope that you're going to get some of that if you want it.
I wanted to, you're showing something there. Yeah, the show that video, which I saw today.
Yeah.
That would be great, thanks. Do you have sound?
Yes. And so what did we just see? It's just a thug basically scaring someone out of their seat on the metro?
Yeah, he knocked on the behind the seats and told them, get out of here. And they, without any discussion, just immediately went out. And when they out, he was just so happy. I mean, no, he wasn't happy, but he sat down, and as you can see his gesture, he sits down and then he extends his arm over the other seat. So two women moved, and he sat down like a king, you know, with the extended hand to the side. He's still upset. He's still angry. So basically, if you look at it, I would say it's a metaphor of what's going on and how a lot of people really feel.
You know,
they feel that they are under a violent attack. We're not talking only about the 6,700 rapes reported per year, or and that is an absolute disaster in on the scale of sadism and on the scale of cruelty. You know, if you didn't have numbers, but if you only had a sort of a basket full of crimes, you know, just basket full of crimes and suffering of the victims. If you have that basket, our basket now is very full and very, very painful. So even if it's individuals, different individuals, and the others are not affected, as a whole, this basket of sadism and pain and suffering is growing. So a lot of people feel that way, that you can win an argument in negotiation, where I worked in, I am associated with an organization called Group Decision Negotiation Association. I'm working for them and writing and editing and so on. And all I can tell you is that in all the studies I've done and researched is the violence or aggression or anger in negotiation is a very successful strategy. So you can really push concessions if you show anger or negative emotions, but in the long run, you might lose your relations if you're using that strategy. You can use that strategy. I have read a lot of court cases from the States, which some of them analyzed and wrote articles on, and they win through intimidation.
I think you're bringing up an ancient Viking tradition, are you not? I mean, you're bringing up an ancient Viking tradition? I mean, isn't that how Rollo, you know, came down and terrorized in whatever it was, 865 or 875 AD, and eventually got Normandy and a whole bunch of, I mean, that's a time-honored tradition brought to us by the Vikings. So maybe it is, you know, I don't know, history rhyming. and teaching, sadly, Sweden lessons that long ago the Vikings taught the rest of the world. Before we finish out, we do have that one final slide from that I just want to quickly talk about if we can, Bilyana. And I'm mindful, won't be more than 5 minutes. Yeah, we can just make that a little bigger. So we've got it. We always, at the end of a presentation, we like to think ahead what might happen in the coming week. And I've learned that in life from some very interesting people that if you can find somebody who's always wrong, that person is enormously valuable. Typically somebody who's always right, and there are very few people who are always right, are so full of themselves that you can, but somebody who's always wrong, you just listen to what they have to say, and you do the exact opposite. So Attorney General, disgraced Attorney General Eric Holder is in quotes, is in print saying that Mueller is definitely going to charge Trump with obstruction of justice. I call major BS on that. Even if he does charge him, he will not convict him. And I think, you know, I think we're past a tipping point in this country where people see the truth behind this Mueller investigation. Mueller was head of the FBI from September 4th, 2001, September 4th, 2013. He has multiple conflicts of interest here. He should not be leading this investigation of Donald Trump. If there needs to be an investigation of Donald Trump, it should have been with a group of people who are not tied into the sordid history of what happened under Bill Clinton and then George W. Bush and then Barack Obama. And Mueller is exactly the wrong man for the job, and Eric Holder, as usual, is wrong. So,
Special Counsel Robert Mueller handed out indictments to 13 Russian nationals over meddling in the 2016 presidential
close that baby up.
Here's what we know.
So if we go back here, it's been announced on CNN, now maybe this is fake news, but it's also in the Times and elsewhere.
Definitely fake.
Definitely fake news. That Mueller is now investigating whether people in the United Arab Emirates were trying to influence the Trump election. Well, if you're going to go down that path, Richard Pollack at the Daily Caller has written wonderful stories about the multiple, we don't need to pull the links up, multiple people who, multiple foreign countries who contributed to the Clinton Foundation and didn't disclose those contributions and didn't get them appropriately cleared, and they're still not disclosed in state forms in New York and California and in other places. They're just not yet disclosed. You're going to go after Trump, Mr. Mueller. You better be looking into, somebody better be looking into the degree to which foreign governments were trying to influence the 2016 election by contributing to the Clinton Foundation. Now, we have this pre-butt, or whatever it is, this leak coming out all over the place that this Inspector General report is going to make an issue of McCabe leaking to the press. And the argument is that he was leaking. We've extensively covered this in prior presentations, the Wiener laptop and the fact that a search warrant was sworn out on October 27th, I think. A leak occurred to the press thereafter by McCabe. And apparently that's going to be covered by this Inspector General in his report, but not the right way. We need this Inspector General is on the hot seat, not because of us, but the world is watching. He's been spending a lot of time and money. We need to understand what he's been doing, and we need to understand if he has not gotten to the gross abuses in the IRS, Department of Justice, where they did not go after the Clinton Foundation, they did not check the subsidies of the Clinton campaign, and the relations among actors in the Clinton campaign, donors to the Clinton campaign, donors to the Clinton Foundation. If he hasn't done that work, his work is going to be discredited, and we're going to just have to start all over again.
How do we know that it was McCabe doing the leaks?
We don't yet know. Now, we also know, we like to shout out to some people who do excellent work in this conservative treehouse, especially Sundance, who writes for them under that whatever name that is saying, has pointed out that there are numerous congressional subpoenas that have a deadline, I think coming up early this week. And we'll see what happens, whether these people do or do not comply with these subpoenas. That's going to happen this week. This is the, Judge Jeanine Pirro, our friend, interviewed 2 Congress people talking about this, but this is a great site to check. I don't know who this person is, but the Sundance person, but when they do work, it's very thoughtful, very detailed, often days, if not weeks ahead of the pack. So I check this site regularly. We go back into the slides. We also have our mutual friend, really, you know him better than I do, Thomas Paine, the real Thomas Paine, or the real fake Thomas Paine.
No, well, right. The primary Thomas Paine.
Yeah. This is, let's not hit the link for the video, but this is worth watching. This Jim Jordan is a wonderful person, congressman from, I think, Ohio. He's a very level-headed, plain-speaking, anti-corruption guy. And he makes an excellent case why we need a second special counsel. I tend to agree with him. I also would take it a step further and say that Mr. Magoo needs to go.
Should be Larry Klayman.
Well, I don't even know that he would be good. Just because we need somebody who doesn't have baggage. Klayman was so against.
A little too
yeah, you need what you would really need is if there were an honest law professor. If I'm sure there's one. Who's written books on ethics and who's not apolitical. Whatever.
Why don't we get Jared Beck to be the special prosecutor?
Again, you have to get somebody who's credentialed.
A little less on the fringe.
Yeah. So speaking of people who've been attacked for being on the fringe, our mutual friend Jerry Corsi was kicked off the air, his YouTube channel, but now incidentally CNN has been bird dogging each of the advertisers to InfoWars and is trying to convince the big advertisers to InfoWars to abandon InfoWars. I don't think that's going to work because I believe InfoWars sells a bunch of their own products on the site.
But it's also tortious interference.
I know. But Jerry has got a new book out almost any day. You don't have to hit the link. Well, you hit the link.
Sorry.
It's all right.
But
it's on the list, Killing the Deep State, The Fight to Save Donald Trump. This will be out imminently. I'm not sure the exact date, but like within the month. Yeah, March 13th. It's going to be out 9 days from now.
There you go.
So we'll be able to see this book. I think it's well-timed as usual, and Jerry is a friend. And I think oftentimes people who fight the establishment are deemed to be controversial, but it's only through fighting the establishment that you can make progress over time, busting through the status quo, which is engaged in self-defeating behavior.
And as you might know, Charles, I actually was going to go see Dr. Corsi the other day. But
Did you do that to his mouth?
You two did that. But, unexpected snowstorm caused me to have to do a phone interview instead. So we...
15,000 views.
We had a little conversation with Dr. Corsi. Everybody always wants to know what Dr. Corsi has to say, so that was good.
It's good. Now, also in the shameless self-promotion department, I was involved in a very modest way in this movie that's coming out called Senseless, and it's a very professional team. I mean, I think they're professional. And there's a teaser in here, which don't hit the link, but you can read up about it.
Well, you got to get your picture in there, Charles.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, anyway, I'm in the teaser. I'm actually the first.
Lee is there as well.
Yeah, there's some interesting people in here. Max Blumenthal, Caleb Mopin's a really good guy.
Barrett Brown.
Yeah.
Lionel.
The great Lionel. So anyway, this is coming out. I'm not sure if they have a production date yet, and I can be certain of one thing. It is unlikely it'll ever make it into the Oscars, which is where we close. Today is imminently the Oscar celebration, and this was a very, very funny, I apologize for the profanity, but look, 14,000 shares on Zero Hedge is a lot. If you go down the page a little bit, there's somebody in Hollywood.
It's Salbo, it's not somebody.
Oh, I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
You know who it is?
Well, Thomas Paine knows him well. Thomas Paine told me about him.
And the Oscar for biggest pedophile goes to... So I'm quite sure that this will be... the audience will not be good, but the controversy will continue as a guest.
They've got Warren Beatty and, is it Faye Dunaway?
Meryl Streep, is it?
I thought it was Faye Dunaway. The people who gave the wrong Oscar last year.
They would come back?
Yeah, they're doing it again.
Yeah.
It's such a good job screwing it up.
They're going to use the same accounting firm, Price Waterhouse, that does the Clinton Foundation?
I heard it's BKD.
Is it?
Yeah, to make sure they screw it up. Well, Charles, it's been a wonderful presentation. Bilyana, thank you so much for joining us. I know both of you guys are aware that Crowdsource the Truth is a community-sponsored news resource, and we're keeping it that way. We don't want a big corporate sponsor who can do things like cut off the money to silence us, not even monetizing on YouTube. We see the undue control that Google has over what we can say. And so, what we've been doing is we've been expanding out to more platforms, and that does cost additional money. We've got Gab.ai, we've got, people can see us on DTube. There have been some issues with that. I'll do a separate issue about DTube, but you and I can talk about it offline. People who do watch the show regularly should consider becoming sponsors. You can do that by going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or by making a one-time sponsorship payment at paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth. And Charles, I think that's all for today.
What about that little Q thing or whatever that?
Oh, well, so Bilyana was talking about some of the tactics that people use to harass. And since my Bitcoin account was exposed and doxxed publicly, although there's no risk to anyone providing a Bitcoin sponsorship, I do believe that that has had the subliminal effect of making people somewhat uncomfortable in knowing that their transactions can be snooped. So the malicious person that did that possibly achieved something. There is no danger. Anyone who wants to send a Bitcoin sponsorship payment can use this QR code. They can also email me, truth@crowdsourcethetruth.org, and I can generate a unique Bitcoin payment address for each transaction. So I'm going to look into doing something like that to thwart the doxing of the Bitcoin account. But it's ironic because this malicious individual fancies himself a cryptocurrency advocate, but I think when you publicly do malicious things with new technologies that people don't understand, the net effect is that it drives more people away from that technology due to fear. So that was a pretty stupid idea. Anyway, I want to thank Bilyana for joining us from Sweden. It's always a pleasure to see you, Bilyana, and Charles, pleasure to have you. It's not Sunday without Sunday with Charles. Tomorrow night, we're going to have the next episode in America's First Refugee, the story of Carolyn and Harmon Wilfred. And of course, Carolyn is from the Dare family, which is a gigantic food company there in Canada. Big court date coming up for her on Wednesday, I believe. So all kinds of stuff going on with courts. Bilyana, thanks so much. How do you say goodbye in Swedish?
Hej då.
Hej då.
Skål.
But
Yep.
I wanted to say
Yes.
one more last thing. Why don't I believe in Soros's ideas or Clinton's ideas of globalization?
Why?
And because the only way that there is harmony and coordination between people is when they are able to participate in decision taking and negotiation. And the bigger the structures become, as for instance the European Union is becoming, the less our opportunity is to participate in decision taking. So, although they are critical to the concept of nation, which we were hammered, this concept was hammered in my head in school. Although there is criticism to that concept, no matter what concept we choose, one or another way, human beings need to coordinate, need to communicate and discuss with each other and participate when decisions are taken. Because they are individuals, because we are more and more informed, more and more educated, so we have more and more ownership of our own lives. If the ownership of our own lives is given away to someone else and we have no chance to control it, then this not only is not democracy, but it's not even well-being, for a human being. So, in a sense, these organizations which are too big, which become too big, and there is no access to participation in good decision negotiation, usually fail.
Yeah, I
and
agree.
that's why this great effort for globalization is, in my view, anti-democratic in its principle, because this is against the principle of participation in the good decision process.
Well, hopefully the individuals involved in doing that are not too big to jail. But thanks again for joining us, Bilyana, and thanks everyone for watching. I will see you tomorrow.